Darky, we're going. Your chance comes up first, don't worry. Public participation. Members of the public are invited to comment on matters within the parish. Would anybody like to comment? Right, I'll just start at this end and go down. I don't know your name, but
John.
John.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, I want to know this right up in the local paper about you buying the post office and shop in Stratton, and what locals have complained about you buying it and putting more money on top of it. Because do they know the history of this area?
I can answer that. The local who complained about it, Darky Jennings in the corner of the.
You complaining about it?
No, I'm complaining about how much they're going to spend doing up the flats and all that.
Well, the
That's
truth
gonna go down
is,
a lot of money.
the truth is,
Let's not have an argument, but
No,
yeah,
no.
he did raise some questions
Yeah,
and we answered them
okay.
as best we could. But obviously, as I explained to him last time, it's an old building, and
yeah,
until you get in there and actually start lifting things up and looking what's underneath or in behind, you don't know
no.
the full extent of the work.
But my point is, does any of the councillors and members of the public know the history of Stratton and Bude?
I would say. Yeah, it's, well, you remember the public. Yeah,
Well, Stratton is the town to Bude.
yeah,
It's not a village. Stratton was a town. And there was loads of pubs, loads of shops. And if you don't know this, that, you know, Woolacot's up Queen Street?
I worked.
Well, it was first, the shop, Woolacot shop was in
Yeah.
Stratton by the Woolworths company. And the thing is that Bude wasn't here. It was called Bedehaven Close.
Yeah,
Bedehaven. And
Yeah.
they used to have people come down from Stratton. The ladies used to come down in a cart with horses pulling them to take them down the beach to swim and taking them back to Stratton. And Stratton is a lot older than Bude. So why are Bude people kicking up about the shop in Stratton? Because me and my wife are both disabled, and that shop has been brilliant. They deliver to us every week, and if we're in difficulty, they help us out and everything. That shop should never be closed, and I appreciate the council buying it. And I know there's a flat up above, and there must be money having to be spent on it. But what about all the places in Bude? Millions and millions and millions of pounds. For this shop in Stratton, there were scores of shops in Stratton, butchers, shoemakers, linen, everything.
yeah,
But a lot of the houses have been converted, you know, the shops have
Yeah.
been converted into houses. But that shop in Stratton is a gold mine for us because they help us so much. You only got to ring them up and say, right, I'm short of milk. They'll walk down and bring a pint down to me and my wife because we're disabled. And they bring all our vegetables every week to us. So why are the people, the public, complaining about the council buying it?
well, see,
Because if you hadn't have bought it,
yeah, I obviously, I can't answer for what other people are saying or doing. I mean, you just explained basically the counter argument I gave to Darky at the last meeting, that the community value has to be factored into any money spent. You know, was one of the primary reasons for us taking the decision to buy it. So, yeah. But please don't start arguing between yourselves.
well, I'm not going to argue with
Yeah.
Darky. I mean, I know him when he was a little chap. When he was born. Awful parish.
Yeah,
Awful
Yeah.
parish.
I know what you mean. Okay, well, thank you for your comment. Who was next? Sorry, I had the hand up next. Richard?
I've got two things. One at a time. Granville Terrace residential parking. For 4 years now, we've been asking about the situation regarding residential parking. in the allocated free space on the terrace. It's so annoying when I come onto the terrace and find there is not one space for me to park. So where do I go? Wherever I park up, come back home, and then when the space becomes vacant, I have to go get my car, drive back to the terrace, only to find that that space has been taken. Plus, other people come and park in the free spaces for days upon days, and they don't even live there. Also, of late, there have been 2 cars parked there for at least 5 weeks. Whenever this subject has been brought up before, we're told that it will probably take a couple of years to go through and would most likely cost us a fair bit of money as well. Well, nothing has ever been done about that in that 4 years. I'm not asking for any signs to be put up or markings done, just for a residential parking permit to be issued to enable us to put on the windscreen stating our house number. Then if the free spaces are taken, we can park in the allocated lanes without them getting a parking ticket from the traffic warden.
You want to pick that up? 'Cause you're
Yeah.
trying
So I'm Katie, and obviously roads are actually Cornwall Council rather than Bude-Stratton Council. But that's why we try and lobby like as much as we can. So is this Heartland Terrace?
No, Granville Terrace.
Granville Terrace, yeah. So that's something I can put forward to directly to the highways team. Basically see costs, basically. Like, and I think the best thing that I ask anyone to do is photos, like evidence, anything like that you can gather, because I think that's what tends to convert minds over at Cornwall Council all the time. I give them a nice big report, photos and images, and that's when we get real changes made. So I will lobby, I will tell them, but obviously if you can forward me, email me, or give into the office any images or notes or even what you've written up,
Well,
that'd be great.
to be honest, I would have thought it was fair to say that what is required, I've just explained. I don't see why photographs are needed for that situation. You can all picture in your minds exactly the locals that what I'm talking about.
It's people in Truro that we have to argue with, basically.
And
It's not
like
us.
I said, like you just said, the opposite is that I'm not asking for anything to be done other than given a parking permit. I mean, stick it on the windscreen. That's not going to cost hardly anything to do and no trouble. If the county council were to agree to it, if they're the bosses, then we can get them done ourselves, or we can ask you guys to just give us a parking permit.
Well, I don't think anything would be us though, would it? Like, it's not our land, so we don't have any legal control over it whatsoever. Like, it's literally, we have no legal rights over being able to say who can park there, who that it can't, because we're Bude-Stratton Town Council, we don't have those roads.
But can you not, as a council, inform county council
That's
what is
what
being
I'm-
asked?
that's
Not
what-
me.
Well, that's what I'm suggesting. That's why I'm suggesting if you can, like, any sort of evidence extra. Go on then.
Yeah, can I intervene?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So, I'm Sean Tilby. I represent part of you. Your other councillors, Councillor Roy, unfortunately Peter's not here this evening. If you can contact me tomorrow, we'll have a discussion about this outside. I've got a similar situation in Stratton at the moment with people parking dangerously and also preventing residents from parking. We're going through that situation in Stratton, so I can't see why I can't look at it for you. So, sorry.
Yeah, that's fine.
If you could contact me outside the meeting,
Yeah.
I'll deal with it for you. But as it said, it's not a matter for Bude-Stratton. They can support me and Peter in trying to get things moving, but in reality, it starts with us, the Cornwall Council, as your representatives, to try and make it happen.
Right.
So if you can contact me tomorrow,
Yeah,
whatever it's
yeah.
convenient, I'll deal with it for you. Okay. I'll keep Peter involved, so I'm sure it's probably more of
I
Peter's
spoke to
suggestion.
them already, so.
Okay, well, I'll speak to him as well. Okay. Sorry, Councillor.
You said you had 2 points. Do you
Yes.
have a second?
Bude-Stratton Football Club, I'm president of Bude-Stratton Football Club, and I've come tonight to make you aware of alterations that we are in the process of doing within the club. We have a facility that is far below the standards required and needs of the club. We have in the last couple of years attained the status of South Western League, which of course demands higher conditions that we currently have. So far, we have been able to establish floodlights and railings around the ground. We are also in the process of having a covered stand for the use of the spectators. Within the situation regarding the weather, over the past couple of years, regarding the playing surface of the main pitch and the training areas, especially becoming unplayable, it has come to a situation where we do not have this facility fit enough to allow proper training to be able to take place. We have to cater for 3 men's teams, a lady team, and numerous youth teams from 8 to 16 to be able to train. Some of these use the school astro, although the lighting situation now is well below standard, with some lights not even working. So some of our teams are actually going out of the area to use facilities offered by other clubs with not so many teams. So we are in the process of improving the whole facility. We have plans to improve the clubhouse and change rooms and training facilities. The clubhouse will be large enough to facilitate community use for large group needs. We are currently using the junior school field for the youth teams and have been in contact with the actual owners of the field, Aspire, about upgrading that facility. Our plan is to put a 3G surface down, high fencing for security and training lights established. Markings will be made on the training surface for the benefit of other sports clubs to take advantage of. So this particular facility will become a community project. This will be managed and to suit the use of whoever. This, of course, will be helped by booking fees, etc., for whoever requires the use of it. We would ask if the council would be able to assist in any way to help benefit from these plans for the community.
Sorry, which field did you say you?
Pardon?
Which field was it you were planning to do that on?
The junior school field,
Junior school field,
Yes.
right? Oh, right, okay.
which is owned by Aspire. And
Yeah.
we've already been in contact with them, and we've got a meeting with them on the 18th of January.
Right, could you let me know how that meeting goes?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, ideal, thank you. But yeah, I've seen you up there, you know I've come up with done a tour of your facilities. Particularly, I think you had issues with the refs changing areas and stuff like that, need to be brought up to a better
Or
standard.
they have been.
They have been done now,
Yeah,
has it? Yeah.
but the whole building will be redone.
Okay, well, if you, after that meeting, if you can let me know how it goes and we'll have a chat and see what we can do. Okay.
Yeah.
Sean?
Thank you, Mr. Can I ask, have you contacted the Football Foundation for financial support?
Yeah.
And their response?
Well, we've got plans that are ready to go in for what we need to do. So basically, we can get funding from a lot of places. But at this stage, we're just informing the council that it's more, this whole thing is more of a community based, wasn't it, than anything else.
Okay, again, outside the meeting, we have a discussion about that because there is some monies available from the Levelling Up Fund, which we can try and get for you. But the other thing is, with the likes of the Football Foundation, you've got to tick all their boxes, especially about surfaces, because you make reference to the surface. And if it's going to be multi-use, you have to be careful that you get the balance right.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll have a discussion outside. Thank you, Mr.
Tom?
Yeah, very briefly, getting on with what this gentleman over here was talking about, it occurred to me that I'm not sure if we got meet the council sessions organised in the future, but it did occur to me that perhaps it would be worth looking for a venue in Stratton for meet the council sessions.
Reasonable idea. And one last thing, Richard, if you email the office, they'll send you across a grant application form, which might prove useful. Yeah. So,
Meeting by the end of December for these.
yeah, the next round is coming up, so it needs to be filled in quickly, but. Right,
Speak to you about that.
Darky, I'm sure you've got something on. Your hand up next, right, thank you. I don't know your name, sorry.
And my name's Rowena Parry.
Okay.
I'm not sure whether any of the councillors received an email from me this morning, but I know Katie knows me well. She was responsible for me managing to put an application through to Cornwall Council to get the speed limit reduced from 40 down to 30 in Bush.
Okay.
This was agreed back in 2021, and we were told that it was going to be implemented in 2022. I then received correspondence to say that that had been delayed because it didn't happen before the summer cut down, which was fine because obviously extra holiday traffic, it's not an emergency. Nothing has transpired at all. 3 weeks ago, we had a further vehicle hit the frontage of our cottage. Driver drove off. So I got back in touch with Katie and said, what's happening? Apparently Cormac went on site in September and did all of the measurements for the new signage, but they don't fit and they've had to be reapproved. They're now back at the depot, but we're told that they won't be put in until 2024 because it's the team that does the gritting. Now, these delays are quite frankly laughable, and that's why.
Yeah. Okay. Sean, it's unfortunate you're the only Cornwall councillor here tonight, but I'm going to pass that one straight to you as well. Because,
Yeah, it is in my division. I
Yeah.
responded to the email this morning.
Okay.
Did you see it?
No, because I was at work.
So I've responded to you. I've taken up the matter with Oliver Jones, who's the highways contact with us, and waiting for a response for that. So if you check your emails, I did
Okay.
respond to you today, and I'll copy Katie in. Okay.
okay.
Thanks.
Go on, then let's have it.
Oh, last meeting, Kevin was on about the administration cost. I didn't quite understand why, I didn't quite get it all. You couldn't ask the question then, so I want to, can you explain it to me now? What was that
The
was about?
administration cost of what?
Well, that's what I didn't quite get. You can't ask the question then, so you was on about the administration cost for the, what was it, the Stratton, Compass Point and that, was that what he's talking about?
Stratton Compass Point.
Stratton and Compass
Oh,
Point.
and Compass Point.
Yeah. Well,
God,
sorry
Kevin,
about
you was like that.
administration cost.
Well, I made a few points in the meeting last month. I guess the point that I was making, certainly in relation to Compass Point, is that lots of people in Bude-Stratton think that Compass Point is a freebie given by the lottery, Heritage Lottery Fund et.al. and a little bit of crowdfunding. But Bude-Stratton Town Council have contributed significantly to Compass Point being moved in officer time and in other ways. So there's sort of the idea that Compass Point has been an entirely gifted arrangement which Bude-Stratton council tax preset payers have not got a hand in the pocket for is rather false. So that was possibly the point I was making in relation to Compass Point. In relation to the Lord's Court in Stratton, there's significant cost involved. You know, I'll stand up in any public forum and put my hands up to say that I was one of the key drivers to buy Lord's Court. Well, you've got to remember certain things about that. The shop and the post office had notice to quit. And there was about a fortnight, if I remember correctly, before the Lord's Court building went up for auction. Now, it is not guaranteed, but it is certainly on the balance of probabilities, my view, that if this council had not stepped in and bought Lord's Court, then the shop would be gone post office would be gone. That building would either be converted into a second home, a holiday home, flats that most local people could afford. The historic mother town of Stratton would have lost one more business, and all the social and community value there would have gone. Now you can say against that is a heck of a chunk of cash, and it is a heck of a chunk of cash. But this council have a book asset. Lord's Court has value. We could put it on the market tomorrow and it would have value, and we would recoup most of that hefty chunk of cash. I believe that the best value that Bude-Stratton can get from that building is to move forward with renovations, continue with the social benefit of having a shop there, continue with the prospect of having flats available in Stratton at a sensible rent, and protect that building from a commercial development. And if people disagree with that, then they are entitled to. And I will, and I'm sure other members around this table will go into bat for Lord's Court, but I'm not going to pretend that it's not going to cost, because it is. But we do have an asset to set against that cost, a physical building asset, and we also have the social and the community benefit that the gentleman spoke so eloquently about at the start of the meeting.
Right. I just wondered what was on about, see, because you can't ask questions at the time, so I had to find out what it was all about.
Well, can I mention the thing just a minute?
If it's
Before the council got in touch with them in the shop, the landlord wanted them out of there and turn it all into flats.
Right.
So luckily, the council took it over, because the only other option for them was to purchase the public toilet in Stratton and turn that into a shop. But they had problems with that. So luckily, you took over the shop, and now you've saved it for the people of Stratton and the town of Stratton. The times I've seen it in the local paper is, oh, houses for sale in the village of Stratton. Well, it's not a village. It's a town.
Point notice, it's a town.
And it was way here before.
It was, yeah, I think on the local history tour of Stratton, I did about another year. First mentioned in Tony's will.
888.
88, there we are. So, yeah. It was a very interesting tour, if anybody wants to take it next year. Right, is that it, Chris?
Historic point,
Well, it's part of Lit Fest, yeah.
yeah, the administrative area of North Cornwall was originally Stratton.
Right, are we, Chris? Oh, sorry, I'll go to that lady there and then I'll come up there.
I am a resident in Hawthorne Avenue, and as you will be aware as a council, that to come into town and walk down the road, we have to cross the road. And we have no crossings, but we do have traffic that's driving like lunatics, as I'm sure you're all aware, because it's all coming up and down there far too quickly. But it's a very wide stretch of road once they go around that bottom bend after the Esso garage, and up they go. And there is nothing, but we have to cross the road because there's no pavement on that side of the road. So we are empowered to actually cross it. And there are some very elderly people who live on that side of that Stratton Road, who you watch trying to cross it, and it's like running the gauntlet. And I know that the police, I think they were there on Sunday, because somebody put on Facebook to tell everybody, slow down. The police, you know, it's so stupid. It's so stupid. And I'm really asking that there are 9 crossings from Budehaven School to the A39 roundabout. And there's nothing from Bude School down to the one that goes into Kings Hill. There's nothing. And I do feel that people need to be a bit more protected. I mean, would it help if some of these, you know, the police put up those speed so people could see what speed they're doing? That might help. But it has become a racetrack up there and down there. And, you know, when they come around that bend, you really don't know what to do, whether you should, you know, I've got 2 dogs and you're trying to cross the road and you just know the traffic's doing all this. Well, you would know that because you spend your time having to cross it over, don't you?
Yeah, but I'm young and right, fit, I will across roads.
That's not the answer that I'm looking for, as you can imagine. Support.
You ain't that young, Dorothy.
And I am speaking, I know I'm speaking on behalf of quite a few people, because they've said to me, we need to actually, but we shouldn't have to get a petition up. It should be looked at as a council that you have done a lot of work higher up, or somebody's done a lot of work higher up. I don't know if it's all necessary. There's like every 50 yards there's a crossing,
Yeah.
but there is nothing on that stretch. And if it was just a central island, so you could at least get into the middle of the road,
Yeah.
it would be helpful.
Right. I see Sean was frantically scribbling more notes.
Yes.
So
Again, can you contact me outside? It is Cornwall Council.
Yeah.
Administration.
that and
Yeah,
everything.
yeah.
We were involved with the.
They are.
Those line crossings.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay. Right. Right. Yeah. We do that. We do need to get on.
Something does need to be done.
This week, told
There's going to be an accident.
raise the issue, so we told them.
Yeah.
No, it's general.
Yeah.
I'm Mike Moore. I'm not a resident in Bude-Stratton, but I was in Stratton a little while ago. And I parked in the car park to wait for a bus, and I was a little early. And I thought, oh, I needed to go to the toilet. And someone just mentioned a few minutes ago about the toilets in Stratton. What is the situation there? Has Bude-Stratton Town Council taken over responsibility for the toilets?
Yeah, we've opened the toilets. They should be opened this year.
Well, they weren't open when I went a couple of weeks ago.
One side of the building is, if you're on the tree inside looking at the building, it's the side on the right hand side has been renovated and reopened.
Yeah, because you've done a disabled.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
But I saw one entrance which appeared to be
Yeah.
blocked off.
It used to be the 2, but we obviously.
Oh, that's useful to know, because I thought that they were
Wide
open.
area, so the right hand side has been renovated and it's now reopened.
Luckily, I wasn't absolutely desperate. Anyway, thank you for clarifying that. I appreciate it.
Okay. Yes. Right. To receive and accept apologies for any.
So Councillor Hannah on holiday, Councillor Brown who is poorly, Councillor Tame who is poorly, Councillor Burt who has work commitments, Councillor Quinton also work commitments, Councillor Haynes also work commitments, Councillor LeBroy also work commitments, and Councillor remind me. Thank you. I couldn't read my writing. For health reasons.
Okay, thank you. To receive any declarations of interest on items on the agenda? No? Cool.
Do you want to accept the reasons for non-attendance?
Accepted, yeah.
Sorry, I got.
To receive a presentation from Connect View?
Thank you for inviting us to speak, and do interrupt at any point. My colleague Adrian is going to say a few words while I finish my little bit. Wanted to begin with a little bit of ancient history. There was a time when a pint of beer cost 2p, and at the same time a pint of milk cost 2p. And life expectancy for men, I think, was 40, and life expectancy for women was 45. And that was the year 1898 when the train line opened from Bude, and you could walk through Bude, get on the train in Victorian England, and be in London in just less than 6 hours. It seems incredible now to think of those times. Connect Bude came about, for those who don't know, we did a play about the closure of the railway line, and we did a little referendum before another certain referendum in 2016. And we asked people, do you think we should reopen the line to Bude? And 100% of the people who came to see the play, and about 600 of them, filled in a little thing and said, yeah, that would be a great idea. So we had a public meeting at the Parkhouse Centre. I booked a little room. It was too small, and we ended up in the Ivor Potter Hall, and 150 people turned up, including Scott Mann, who happened to be there by serendipitous means. and spoke to the assembled group of people, which included people of all ages, men and women. Everybody was there. It was great. And I thought at the time, well, if this many people had just come to a meeting, it was just advertised in the letter in the paper, there must be an awful lot of other people who've got the same sort of aspirations to get us connected. And given that the government is now encouraging us to reverse beaching, to reconnect disconnected communities and to level up, their words, not ours, we're sort of thinking, well, for the first time in my lifetime, it seems like the passion of the government to actually do something about these things is apparent. And so we've sort of been trying to strive to grasp the nettle of it, really. And in amongst other organisations and other town councils and other places within the southwest, there's a kind of a growing realisation that rail is a fantastic way to go. And only recently, Launceston Town Council have now declared that they are really passionate about getting the line opened again from Oakhampton to Launceston, and clearly in Bideford, they're trying to get the line from Bideford to Barnstable. And there are other places all around the country where this is happening. So just a quick resume of what we've been up to, really, because we beaver away with it. We have monthly meetings. We've got 500 supporters and members. We've got local businesses that support us, and we are slowly, persistently, passionately campaigning to make it happen. And it's going to be, it's a marathon, not a sprint. We understand that. We need to take people with us. There might be people with concerns, people who kind of don't agree with it and wouldn't want it, but we need to kind of deal with those concerns and address them. Some of the things that all the things that we do actually, the history of what we're about is in this leaflet. So you can have a look at that. It just tells you about the past, the present, and hopefully the future, how it might pan out. We continue to support our colleagues at Oak Rail, and since the line opened at Oakhampton, the remit for Oak Rail has kind of changed. We're actively involved in that, and that's now broadened its kind of remit so that it supports Connect View and Tavistock and probably Launceston now as well, and other places that are actually trying to reinstate railway lines. And it is interesting that the sort of rather curmudgeonly business case for Oakhampton was exceeded by 250% in terms of passenger numbers. And there's a whole load of people who, they're not going to fill in a form, they're not going to come to a focus group and so on. But when the line is there, they think, well, yeah, actually, that's great for work, for training, for leisure, for health, for getting up country and onward travel, and for a whole host of other reasons. They will use the train, and that's exactly what's happened in Oakhampton, and they're all astonished. I was talking to Matt Barnes from Great Western Railway a couple of weeks ago at Oakhampton Station at the second anniversary of the line there, and I said, do you think it would have happened without Oak Rail, the campaigning group? And he thought about it for a bit, and he said, well, to be honest, no. He said they were kind of, I won't say a thorn in our side, but he said they just persistently kept going at it to bring together the people who are actually going to make the difference, and sort of banging political heads together, and yeah, doing a few stunts, commissioning a train and taking 500 people to London to meet Mel Stride and had an important meeting, which then led to the changes that happened. So that's why it's important that a little campaigning group like Connect View, working in partnership with Town Council and with Holsworthy Town Council, who a year ago today agreed 100% unanimously to support the aims of Connect View. And we've had got success with them, and hopefully with yourselves and your support. It's been a bit harder to get into Holborn actually and speak to the parish council people in Holborn to get their interest and support. And if it all happens in the future, now that Launceston is interested, they've realised that actually the best route from Launceston to Oakhampton would be via Holborn. So there is a potential for Holborn Junction to once again live up to its name. We have commissioned drone footage, interest from people up country from the Jurassic Coast Railway, who for free and gratis, apart from us putting them up in the pub, Nigel Ewings and Trevor Streeter have made drone footage, professional drone footage of the track bed from Oakhampton towards Bude. And they did a load last winter. They're now waiting. They're probably going to do finish it off at this point in the winter. And that would be really useful for different ways of kind of convincing different user groups and different people whose minds we have to convince in our campaign. We've undertaken a pilot study of visitors to Bude, so we had face-to-face interviews with over 50 people in the summer who were visitors, and we're about to do a survey which will go, a random survey which will go to houses throughout Bude-Stratton to garner this evidence. And this evidence is really important. You kind of need to build a whole weight of evidence to support what we're doing and to support the business case. We're a core member of Bude Climate Partnership. We attended their sustainable tourism meeting. And what struck me there was that in one of the films, there was somebody who said, they were talking about all the huge issues of climate change and oceans rising and all the rest of it. And the guy said, and a bit of extra recycling isn't going to hack it. This is a climate emergency, which implies urgent action and big things that are actually going to make a difference. And I think one of the biggest things that could be done is a modal shift from private to public transport, and rail transport is the greenest form of energy. And there will always be people who don't have private cars, who've got no choice but to use the poor bus service that it doesn't link properly with the trains at Oakhampton, but hopefully will when we've had a meeting with Nick Truscott and Janine that Peter Laffoy is arranging from Cornwall Council. They're going to come up and talk to us to see if we can't sort of manage to get those links sorted. So I was trying to lost my track of that. And the hope would be that we end up with a fast, kind of liveried, kind of integrated bus service, and that will make it possible to achieve gradually that modal shift, so that we get people who wouldn't dream of getting out of their cars. You wouldn't prize them out with a pickaxe, really. And I'm probably one of those as well. Unless a journey is kind of dependable, reliable, and cheap, you're not really going to do it. But there's a whole swathe of people who, given an opportunity to make a green choice, will actually get out of their cars and get on a direct bus service which links up with trains as a forerunner to reinstating the line. David Hill-Smith, who's one of our colleagues who's working really hard on an engineering study that we're putting together to look at route options. He happened to go to a climate conference and sat next to Andrea Davis from Devon County Council, one of their leads on transport. And she described to him a rural transport hub idea, which would ideally be collated with a local amenity, preferably a shop, post office, but possibly a pub, so that some form of all-day presence is at the site. The hub should have secure bicycle storage with charging for e-bikes and a secure car park with CCTV and lighting. Ideally, they should be linked to good cycle paths and walking routes. They are then connected to the nearest railhead by a dedicated bus that only serves the hubs and connects with the trains, effectively a virtual branch line. And David said it occurred to him that these could happen at Holwell, at Holsley, and somewhere near Bude. And it occurred to him that they could be the site of the proposed new stations. Constructing them at these locations would not only be a way of protecting the station sites, but would also help protect the rail corridor itself and start a local network of safe access routes to the sites of the eventual stations. The new car parks could even become the permanent car parks for the new stations. So this is a proposal which he's putting to connect Bude, and we'll talk about this at our next meeting. But that could be a forerunner and a much, much cheaper option in the first instance to kind of secure the track bed and make that possible as a first base towards reinstating the line in the future. Finally, you'd be glad. We'd encourage Bude-Stratton Town Council to set the bar high. I think if the people who shout the loudest are going to get the lines across the country. And now they've scrapped HS2, there is money sloshing around, and they're serious about levelling up, then they can make a real impact across the country by actually funding some of these schemes. Nobody said it's going to be cheap. Clearly it's not. But the hard yards were done in 1898. 44 bridges, 2 viaducts. People died building the railway line to Bude. They didn't die to build a cycle track. And there is the potential for dual use. There's no problem having dual use. And there are examples of that across the country where that can happen. But I think we need to have high expectations, because if you've got low expectations, you'll just end up with something mediocre, which is a bit like what's happened, with the bus service. Wouldn't you have thought that, given they spent 10 million quid on the railway line, that with respect, the council, Cornwall Council, the powers that be, Stagecoach might have got together 2 years ago, like they did in Tavistock, and organised a livered virtual branch line that links in with the railway, with the station at Campton. But no, we're having to scrabble together to get a meeting in a few weeks' time, and little old Connect Bude is having to be part of it, which is fine. We're having to do that, but I kind of think, why are we doing this? Surely that should have been sorted as part of it, because the bus service is poor. Stagecoach aren't even commercially operating it anymore because there's so few people that are using it. It's caused untold grief to so many people and students being left at the station, and it should be possible to sort that as a very basic thing. But that's why we need to have higher expectations about what can be achieved. And I think, it would be transformational for this town, and particularly for Holsworthy, actually, and other places along the way, to reopen the line. It's not going to turn into Newquay. That happened years ago. The people who come into Bude and cram the place in the summer, and the people who live here and want to use it for a whole host of reasons, they will just use the railway instead of using other means of transport. There might be a few day trippers with a kiss me quick cat, but who cares? That's going to help local businesses, and it will make a big difference to Bude. I've said too much, probably. I want to introduce Adrian Gannon, who's going to say a little bit briefly about the engineering study that he and David Hill-Smith have been working on. Thank you.
Right, thank you.
That's difficult answer, I think you covered most of the topics I was going to ask, which is really good. I just want to take you back a couple of years ago to start with, in the sense of we've heard this story of railways bidding a couple of years ago. In fact, there's a head on that activity at the time. We got really positive feedback about the quality of that bid. But we were unsuccessful. And we were unsuccessful for a number of reasons. And we got feedback from the authorities, etc., about the 2 or 3 things we were really on. One was a clear message around our problem statement at the start. Really not bringing the railway back, but what we were actually trying to solve, make sure we got that right. And then the other 2 aspects that were particularly evidence-based was, have you got up-to-date evidence really from your population, from your support agencies, from your stakeholders about what value the railway would bring and how it can impact this future of the North Cornwall. So the last bit of evidence we had, Richard talked about, was when Connect Bude was set up, it was something like 2016. So there was a void between what we collected then and previous surveys that had been a number of years ago to collect some real data and some evidence. And then the third feedback we got was around engineering viability. Yes, you've talked a really good story about bringing the railway back to Cornwall, back to North Cornwall, but is it actually viable? And that's not detailed feasibility studies, that's top level engineering studies and just looking at the credibility of bringing that. Are there opportunities to link in with new developments? Are there opportunities to take slightly different routes, slightly different options to what was originally taken, and things like that? In other words, a 21st century railway rather than a previous Victorian one. So those are the 2 feedback items, 2 or 3 feedback items that we got post our YR. So those are the 2 types of things that we focused on this year, particularly at Connect Bude. So Richard's already talked about setting up some survey work. So we did the pilot study for tourists this year, and that was really interesting. One of the facts that came out from that was, of the 50 people that we actually interviewed on that single day, 93% of that population group said they would use the railway if they had the opportunity to travel here on holiday, or if they were on holiday and they come by cars, they'd use the railway to visit Dartmoor, Exeter. So that's a really high percentage of a small group, admittedly, that were really keen to it's an important factor to bring in. So the next stage of that survey piece is really, as Richard alluded to, is now to move on to the Bude-Stratton bit as a first focus, but we want to go all the way down the line to get that evidence all. But we're starting in 2024 doing the Bude-Stratton. So that would be really helpful if you've got some engagement. Then on the engineering side, then I produced a document at the start of last year, February this year, February 23, which really looked at the strategy to get over the engineering issues. Could we address those big ticket items between Oakhampton and Bude effectively in terms of were there options to actually restore the railway? So that strategy was produced, and I believe the strategy and presentation was provided as pre-read material. Yeah, there's pre-read material out there. By all means, look at it afterwards if you haven't read it, because it's really good story in there. But basically, what the strategy identified was 5 key issues. How do you get across the A30 dual carriageway having left Oakhampton? How do you then look at alternative routes? In other words, do you actually have to cross that dual carriageway, or is there an alternative route you take from Oakhampton? How do you get through Helwell? Because Helwell has moved on, Helwell Junction has moved on considerably from the way it was previously. So what are the options to look at that? Then recommendation 4 came on to how do you get from Holsworthy to Bude? And then finally, we looked at Bude's recommendation 5, which is, okay, so what are the options to actually put a station in Bude? Where would it go? What would it look like in the future? And what do you want as a community? So those are the 5 options that we looked at in the strategy. Then the study, once again, the study to date has been shared with you as pre-read. It looks at recommendations 1, 2, and 3. So it takes us through to Helwell, basically. That's the work that we've done this year. And yes, we can successfully say there is an option to put a bridging over the A30. It is credible. There are alternatives that we've looked at from Oakhampton linking in with the old line, which will avoid using that junction, the bridge, and Melbourne Viaduct if we had to. And also we've looked at Helwell, and there's at least 3 different options we could use to go around Helwell in different ways. Still have a local station. So all the work to date, from an engineering perspective, is saying there are credible options on the table that we could look at for the future to move that forward. The next 2 stages are moving into Holsworthy and then on to Bude. So we've deliberately started at Oakhampton End, because obviously we can't get from Oakhampton, there's no point in it. But we're now getting to the point where Bude is important. In other words, placing a station somewhere in Bude, what type of station it would look like, starts to impact the line designs and where you might want to go. Do you need to come into Bude itself? Do you want a parkway station on the A39? What does that look like? What are the options there to look forward to? Also, that's really important at the moment where you're looking at your future development plan, because a railway may be 10 or 15 years away, but if you don't get it in your development plans now, then we won't safeguard that site. Or more importantly, you might not make the development around that site of other things like Richard was talking about bicycle ways, bus connections, car parks, etc. all linking with you. So there's a study that we're hoping to kick off this year, which we'd like your engagement with, to look at that recommendation 5, where we're going, what are the options for stations in Bude. Next point really is just coming into, on the back of the survey, what you really need to do as part of a final submission for future rail line is do what you call, basically it's a passenger demand study. Where is the passenger demand going to come from to enable you to support a railway bid? And that's a complex piece of work that the government provide you a template, etc., and methods to actually follow. And you need to do that really to generate your data sets. So we're currently in the process of doing that for the first time for Bude. And all the data from the surveys, etc., that we conduct become real data, which then inform that passenger demand survey. So basically, it becomes better and better the more you do it. So the 2 areas there that we really could do with some help with is projection on tourism for the future and projection on growth for Bude, because those are factors that we need to fit in, which will then educate that demand study. And it may well be, if you look at the demand study today, it says it's not feasible to bring back a railway today. But when you look 5 years hence, the data will say, actually, in 5 years' time, that's when you should be doing it, because all the ducks are aligned. And these are all exercises that Oakhampton and many other stations and designs have gone through in the past to take people on that duration. So that's all for me. That's all I'm going to say today. But it's really a plea that I think there's an opportunity now for us to engage with you much better in the future going forward from a council perspective, how you can feel and help us our challenge and how we can help you.
Brilliant, thank you very much.
Any
Kevin?
questions or?
Yeah, I've got really seven on this.
I don't know the price of milk in 1984. I don't know the price of beer in 1984. I do know that I used to catch the Jennings bus. It took me from the Strand bus stop to Exeter St David's. And when I got on the train, there was a lovely map of the train network in the whole of the country. And there was a little dotted line that went from Exeter to Bude, and that was the Jennings bus. Now I have a lot more time for Connect Bude. If, when advocating for the station at Oakhampton, when telling the good people of Bude-Stratton how lovely having a train station at Oakhampton would be, you actually considered that that might disrupt the bus service, and it might actually be harder for a large group of people to get their bums on a train seat than it was before the Oakhampton station got set up. So I'm an absolute agnostic as far as this is concerned. I remain to be convinced that opening the station at Oakhampton has done very much at all for Bude-Stratton. Might have done lovely for people who live in Oakhampton and the surrounds, but I'm yet to be convinced that the loss of the direct bus service from Bude to Exeter really is worth having that train sitting there in Oakhampton station. As for going forward, you asked 50 people. 50 people, are you going to use the train? You're down here on holiday. Would you use the train? Would you have a little ride around on it? Yeah, of course I would. I'd love to see the countryside out train window. Yeah, people are going to vote for motherhood and apple pie. If you ask them, would they like nice, sweet, jolly things, they're going to say yes. And I'm sure user surveys will be forthcoming and all sorts of things to make a business case. But Bude is a small community. And in 15 years' time, we'll still be a small community. And the only way that a train station will be viable is if it's a much bigger community with a load of commuters living in it. So be careful what you wish for. And as for 15 years to run a train track from Oakhampton down to Bude, I think that is extremely unlikely. So I am a complete agnostic. I wish it neither harm nor ill, but I do say, let's have a look at the dentition of the gift horse very, very carefully, because the gift horse that was Oakhampton Station has not proved to be particularly worth having, in my opinion.
Thank you. I think you've avoided the gift horse off the table there. I think Sean, please.
Yeah, I want to absolutely disagree with Kevin that a legitimate connected service doesn't necessarily mean a larger community. I have a great piece of evidence of having to drive my partner, my son, all the way to Oakhampton Station because the bus route didn't connect them to the train they wanted to get on directly to Weston-super-Mare to see our friends. So that saved a massive long hard journey and we had a great time. So I would be all for whatever it is in the short term, a direct bus route to connect to Oakhampton, because for us that is the choice of travel in terms of direction. And I think it's a really good strategy and love how thorough all of the kind of evidence base and all the engineering work that you've been putting into it is. And yeah, I wish you the best of luck. I think it's a fantastic aspiration for the future. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think so yeah, thank you guys for coming to present. And I can't obviously I've got to go on tours, meetings, as many as I can anyway. And it's an incredible amount of work that they're all volunteers, completely unpaid. And I'm really passionate about making sure people are paid for their time in pretty much anything they do. So I think the thing that they're fundamentally asking us is, come on, Bude-Stratton, can you help decide where you want a station? Because either way, that's going to inform the engineering study to see if it's even possible. We might find that actually it's not at all possible to get it to Bude, in which case that allows them to refocus their efforts on Holsworthy or Halwell. So it doesn't matter really where on that line you sort of stand if you want the train or not. it allows a group to see if it's even possible. So like, so asking for our support with that. And on top of that, obviously, with the projection for tourism and projection for growth, etc., like we already have, obviously, from the well document, some really good figures for how like we are at the moment. And you know, we said in that there's 285,000 visitors a year in the area, which is a fair sum. And obviously, most of those, pretty much, in fact, all of those will probably end up be driving. So it'd be fair whack of cars off the road, hopefully. And obviously, I would hope that we have some evidence that we've got through the town team. But obviously, I think it's a worth discussion. Like, I think it's obviously worth continuing to support the project going forwards and taking part in whatever workshop we need to take part in and stuff. Then we go ahead and do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think in principle, I support the idea, but I'm sort of like running through my head with the question, where would you put it in Bude-Stratton? The only place is up the river where it used to be, and we all know that's going to flood regularly going forward. And then you have the issue of crossing the A39. So in my own head, and I must admit, I've not looked into it in great detail, but I'm already leaning towards Parkway, which takes it outside of our parish. We probably need a conversation involving the wider parish area, so to speak. And then have some kind of, you know, if it was outside of you know, I mentioned in parishes, but with, you know, cycle links and everything like that, you know, terminating at the tourist information centre, whether, you know, we've already got the cycle track and everything like that, you know, that would definitely be worth investigating in my mind. You know, it fits the green criteria quite well. But yeah, you know, you hit the salient point on the head, Katie. Where would you put it in view? And I'll back it back at you. Where would you put it?
But that's why we should have a conversation about it and take part in whatever workshop
Yeah.
or forum that they want to do that. And if that means that forum organised by them is involving, I mean, it should involve other parishes around the area.
Yeah.
Like that just means that's either way, wherever it goes. I mean, obviously, I should imagine there's going to be a few different options based on cost or whatever. But, you know, the fundamental principle is we should continue this discussion and take part in those conversations.
So one of your studies is going to be to look at the viability of sites effectively within our parish, or
what we will be doing is a brief study that identifies options for where the railway could come into view.
Right.
It might look along the old route, it might look at some new routes, and it will try and identify some key locations, either outside of Bude on the A39, for example, as a part of this site, or maybe options where you could bring it into Liverpool. Right. And it's then really to have a discussion. That would open up the discussion then as a stakeholder meeting and say, actually, what's credible here and what would you guys want? Because it's not for us as a rail community, transport community, to tell you where you want your station. It's for others to say where they need it.
Yeah, I think it's just viable options that to be presented to the public. That would, you know, be a very good place to start.
Yeah, well, you probably know already that we're in the process of starting to review our neighbourhood development. I think it would be really helpful if you know, we could have a stint on that group, and then there's an opportunity while we're consulting about neighbourhood development to potentially wrap something like that in, and also presumably we could protect any parts of the railway infrastructure that's still there. So to make sure that that isn't built on while this decision is kind of working through.
Much of what we're looking at the moment is convincing ourselves of the viability.
Right. Okay.
So at the end of the day, if a bus is the right answer, and it's a modern bus running on gas power or whatever in the long-term future, interconnected with every train, that's great. But at the moment, you have to look through this and really understand what the options are. And in terms of population size as well, if you look at the greater Bude area, if you like, which is the North Four, you're approaching 40,000 when you look at the port area. They don't have access to the railway. Yeah. 40,000 is where Network Railway going to go. That's their switch point. Right. Big enough to start looking at seriously. So you've got help from the government already saying, yeah, we're interested, we're looking at this. And it's really just to get our perspective.
Okay, well, unless there's any more questions, thank you for coming in. And Richard.
Thank you. Could I just ask who you are, who you represent, what your expertise is? Yes.
Adrian Gannon, I just work for Connect View. I don't work for Connect View. I'm part of Connect View, the volunteer for Connect View, nothing more. And an engineer by background.
What, rail engineer or?
No.
Okay. And the other name mentioned, David Hill Smith.
So,
He is an ex-industry professional who still works in rail. He's up and down to London for rail stuff all the time, and he's advising us.
He used to run the infrastructure for the whole of Great Western. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to respond to some of Kevin's points about his feeling that the opening of the rail service to Oakhampton has not been beneficial to people in Bude. I think there's some evidence that previously people who would have driven from Bude to Exeter now drive to Oakhampton station and park there. And I think there's probably quite a significant number there, although we don't have actual figures, because I think that's the sort of passenger usage that's contributed to the usage exceeding their expectations. And I think there is evidence that people are finding that very useful. No, that's not useful for people who obviously don't have access to a car. So that but there was a recent change to the number 6 and 6A bus service. So now instead of needing to change buses in Oakhampton, you can stay on the same bus and it becomes a 6A when it gets to Oakhampton station, and you can get right through. So there isn't a worry there about missing the connection because you just stay on the same bus. And the other point I'd like to make is nothing's been mentioned about this in the meeting so far, that work is going on to build a new station in Oakhampton, which we think might be called Oakhampton Parkway, but the name hasn't been decided. But that station is on the east side of Oakhampton, as you go out towards the A30 towards Exeter. Now, the big benefit that provides is that it gives much easier access for the buses to get to the train. So it would become the connection between bus and train would become more reliable, because at the moment one of the main difficulties is the buses actually getting from the town centre in Oakhampton up the hill to the station, because there's a lot of road congestion there, and that really is a big problem. I mean, the timings anyway for the number 6 between Bude and Oakhampton are very, very tight anyway at the best of times, so that's a bit of a challenge, and I think that's something that needs to be looked at. But I think the timings are tight because the timetable was put together on the basis of using one vehicle and one driver and going back and forth. And they had to have those tight timings in order to enable it to be done with one vehicle, one driver. But obviously, if the aim is to provide a better service, and ideally the service ought to be hourly to connect with each train, obviously it needs more vehicles and more drivers. So it does make it a more expensive option, but it provides a much better solution. And I think a better service will lead to more passengers. I think the reason the number 6 is losing passengers is because it's not reliable enough and it's not frequent enough. Those are the two key points. And if you provide a service like that, you're not going to get the passengers onto it that you would like. But I think the other point is that some potential passengers may not like to get on a double-decker bus, which is really designed for urban use, not the long distances that it does, for that sort of journey. So obviously it does mean that when Connect Bude look at our aspirations, the point that Richard made about a dedicated bus, that coach, almost a luxury coach, of the type where you maybe put the luggage underneath the seating area rather than cluttering up the area in a bus. Because if you look at these double-decker buses now, some of them have got a significant luggage area, but of course that eats into the space on the lower deck.
That is exactly what used to happen in 1984. As a student, I used to chuck my suitcase in the little thing under the beginning's bus, which we called a bus, but it was also a coach when we hired it out privately, and we show up to Exeter St David's and we caught the 7 o'clock train.
Yes.
My point is not that Oakhampton has not benefited anybody. My point is that Oakhampton has not benefited everybody, and that there are losers as well as winners. And I believe there will be losers as well as winners going forward. And the presentation of this as being a wholly good thing, which doesn't have any nasty little stings in the tail, is, I think, disingenuous. And we can see that quite clearly by the way that the bus was affected when the train station was open. And at that point, I rest my case.
Okay. I think Sean, you got your hand up?
Thank you. Yeah, it's just a statement actually. There is nothing about it. The mid-Cornwall metro is going ahead. And that's picking up towns like Bude to St Austell and places like that. So that's going ahead. So there is money available if we can put a valid case together. And just to comment about the engineering side, the people that have been looking at the mid-Cornwall metro, I asked them and said, what about the likes of Bude and North Cornwall? I said, well, the infrastructure is not there, i.e. the old railway lines have disappeared. So we have to start again on greenfield sites or virgin sites to provide the rail tracks. Now, if you can argue that, it's not the case. I know it's not the case. You drive around this area, you can see where the railways used to be. The viaducts are still there. The bridges are still there. This is just a case of making a good case for North Cornwall, and I'm sure you'll get the support.
Okay. Funny feeling I want you to say, Darby, keep it polite, and then we are moving on.
I think it's back to the old story, isn't it? We've got a load of blow-ins who've moved here.
Right.
Wasn't the station.
Darby.
Hang on, Mike. No, I'm listening to them for 10, 20 minutes.
Keep it polite.
I am being polite. I am being polite. Blow-ins is not bad
Big
words.
ball's much worse than that, don't we?
All right, carry
But
on.
we decided that, oh, well, we'll live here now, we'll have a train station. I can see 4 people in this room that have went out of Bude on a train over 50 years ago. 1, 2, 3, jam 4. Well, it was, you know, I knew that out there. So it's now, they decide they want a train, it's not going to happen. And one other point, I went to use that bloody train out of.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, Hampton.
My mum was on it with him.
Yeah, I know. But as the bus pulled in, the train pulled out. Hell of a way to run a system.
Right, thank you, Darky. Right, thanks guys for coming in, good presentation, and yeah, let's keep the conversation going, okay?
Thanks for your time.
You're welcome. Right, now we'll get down to the less exciting bit. The mayor's report. Right, if anybody wants to leave now, it's probably a good time. Can I come?
Cheers. You got me that?
Okay. The mayor's report for November. I had a very busy November. Obviously, Remembrance Sunday was the main event. We were visited by the Deputy Lord Lieutenant Cornwall, who was our guest of honour, along with somebody called Chris Dawkins, who I can't remember what rank he was, but he's now chair of the. Yeah, he's sort of like chair of the local Royal Neighbour Association now. So the day, president. The day went very well. So I know a lot of our staff were involved in helping set it up at the last minute. So thank you for all of that. The other big news, our skate park tender has finally gone out. That's brilliant. Again, thank you to the staff involved in that. And tomorrow I'm switching on the Xmas lights in the triangle, all things being well. Christmas lights, sorry. I wrote excellent, I'll get it out. And we're bringing along a little girl called Fenna, who some of you probably remember wrote a letter into us and made a short video about all the trees being chopped down in the parish. So as we've opted for a sort of environmentally friendly option, we invited her to come along and kind of like some with me. Although she's a little shy, so we're not 100% sure she's going to do it. Hopefully, I've tried to convince her I'm also a little shy. But anyway, that's the end of the mayor's report. Any reports from Cornwall councillors?
Thank you, Jim. I don't know if Pete has mentioned to you about the consultation that they're having, the council having with you, regards to the present car park. Overnight parking for
camper vans.
Oh, the camper vans, right, sorry, yes.
Yeah. I wasn't, even though part of my division is Flexbury and booklets, which I took up with the cabinet member on that, but anyway, that's personal matter, but as long as you guys are aware of that.
Yeah, we've got all spots on the news.
Well, it's not yet, but to be honest, that's the first that I knew about it, following up from a briefing earlier in the day, so I was not best pleased. Right, on the 22nd of last month, November, I attended the Children and Families Overview and Scrutiny Committee. We had a presentation by the Senior Education Officer, Mr. Mark Corbett. It's just basically given us an update as to where various key stages are against the protocols and the markings that they have to adhere to, and sort of looking at the UK average. The areas of strength in our early years, particularly phonics, reading, key stage 2, progress being made pretty good there. And also key stage 2 with regards to writing. It's up 2% over the previous year, and it's above the UK average, so we're doing quite well in the early years at the moment. There are areas of development we need to really work on, key stage 1 and 2 and 4, with regards to writing, but they're working on that. Outcomes for our disadvantaged children, pupils and children receiving SEND support, that's generally up 1 to 1.5% over the last year, but still is 1.6% below the UK average, so we need to do some work on that. But the ladies in the room are probably, this won't be a shock to them, but generally girls outperform boys. It's just been like that for many years, so I won't continue that debate. The Children and Families budget is an overspend at the moment, 5.5 million. This is mainly due to home to school transport. The Cabinet is having to seriously look at trying to mitigate those costs in sort of more practical way of actually getting our children to school, because in a rural area we are in a problem with regards to getting kids to school safely. Can't rely entirely on buses, so that's when we're looking at private hire taxis, that sort of thing. So that's where the costs are soaring at the moment. Where else are we? Generally, the improvement in all areas is up 2 to 3%. With an average of 2% below the UK average. This may be due to, everything gets blamed on the pandemic, but it seems to be, especially for our SEND and disadvantaged people, it seems to be what happened in the pandemic. They weren't fully supported, the homeschooling, that sort of thing. On the 24th, I attended the Devon and Cornwall Overview and Scrutiny Committee for Police. At Plymouth. These are comments that were raised by the Police and Crime Commissioner, Alison Hernandez. Both these reports, there are access to full detailed comments on the various websites, but if anybody's got any direct questions, they can come back to me. Number of police officers have increased by 21% from 2018, which equates to an additional 619 officers as of September 2023. That stands now at 3,500 officers in Devon and Cornwall. Areas of Operation Scorpion, which you may come across, which is targeting organised drug rings, especially county lines. The way that they look at it is the disruption to the operations of these drug rings. Looking at, this is such a thing, nearly 2,000% increase in these disruptions, which equates to 1,379 disruptions since 2019. They've been working with both sides of the Savvy because that's where most of the county lines organisations have come to, into the smaller areas or sort of areas such as Cornwall to work their business. So we've been working closely with them because they've got a lot of experience in trying to disrupt these organisations. Road safety. This year there's been from December 22nd, 2022. There's 11 near fatalities since that date, and fewer serious casualties. Also, community speed watch, 24 more schemes since 2021, working with community volunteers, which is something that some of our members of the public mentioned today. So when they contact me tomorrow, I'll suggest that we look at speed watch, which we have actually given Philippa the results of one that was held at Stanford Hill, which is given us something to work to. So we can perhaps introduce that into other areas. Excuse me, I got terrible cold. Number of young people victims of crime is up by nearly just under 1,500 since 2019. The increase in violent crime up 8.4% since 2019. That stands at 33,455, which is worrying. This is consistent with the elements of caution that really decrease is reported in crimes police nationally. So we have to, sort of balance out with what's actually happening in the UK, not purely what's happening in Cornwall. Domestic violence decreased 1.3% compared to 2019. Antisocial behaviour decreased 40% since 2019. Possession of drugs decreased by 13.1% since 2019, which equates to 435 offences. Drug trafficking only down by 7 offences since 2019. It was 918. Now it's it's gone up to 974. Goes to more work, 111 service to try and reduce the waiting times. This is being looked at by the introduction of better IT and IT systems and staffing, especially with the 999 calls, to try and get those times down, because we're looking at some of them could be 20 to 40 minutes wait. That's why the Commissioner is keen to open up more of the police stations, Pullman centres that we've got in view now. There's another 10 of those to be opening across Cornwall the next year. So what we're trying to do is to encourage people that have got problems with crime or whatever to go to these stations rather than use the telephone, unless it's an emergency, to go in and get support there. And that support may be directed to the council, not you, but Cornwall Council, if it's social and personal issues, rather than police related item. That's it, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Right.
Yeah, so in regards to the school transport, if you were looking for smaller than buses but bigger than taxis, then Holsworthy pickup service.
Yep.
Always, yeah.
Yeah, this speaking to their chair.
Cool, awesome.
It's the first time, Dave.
Right, Darky, you got your chance.
I don't.
We're moving on.
Cornwall Council or go Cornwall?
Darky.
Quiet, please. Can I ask Councillor nothing then?
You can ask him outside. I just said we're moving on. Full council to approve the minutes of the previous meeting, 2nd of November 2023. I propose that we do that.
Sorry, I can't.
Sure.
Yeah, it was just the item relating to the crematorium. The minutes said the councillor Stratton gave a history of the planning application pertaining to the agenda item. I didn't watch the recording again, and certainly it was my intention, and I think it was by David, I actually addressed through material planning considerations as to why we should be supporting why I thought the motion should be supported. There's certainly no intention on my part to make the comments into history on the crematorium. It was still to address the.
Yeah, we can delete that, but it's problematic. I think collectively we did give a reasonable history lesson in that case, but
not for me.
Yeah, best part of an hour going over it, but you want to delete it? That's fine. Yeah.
Well, is it a reasonable task that we recorded that Councillor Sullivan actually addressed, spoke to the motion and put forward material planning plans.
Can you repeat it, Tracy, please?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you at all.
Sorry, yeah, well, I think that the terminology that's normally used when there's a specific motion is that the councillor who moves the motion, it says that normally says that Councillor O'Sullivan, in this case, would say Councillor O'Sullivan spoke to the motion and mentioned or planning considerations as to why he felt the motion should be supported.
Okay, I'm not going to disagree with that. I'm not going to say we're structured with it. Just like to say, for the benefit of the room, the reason these minutes are emailed out well in advance of the meeting is the points that this can be dealt with before the meeting, where it's much easier to deal with it and amend them.
Well, yeah,
by the time they reach the table in front of me.
I'd already addressed the proposed posted on.
Yeah, but so yeah, if in future we just sort of do it before so we can make any corrections, it would make our lives slightly easier. We approve them now, they're not amended, are they?
No, subject to that.
Subject to that amendment, okay, then I propose we do that subject to that amendment. All in favour? Against? Abstain? Yeah, cool. Committees to receive and note the draft minutes of the meeting listed below. Planning Committee, 8th and 22nd of November 2023. All in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Cultural and Heritage Services, 23rd of November 23. You propose? Okay, all in favour? Against? Abstain? Corporate and Democratic Services, 30th of November 2023.
Just wanted to check with Tracy. Tracy, you said that there was an amendment had to be made to the attendance. Yeah, done that. You've done that. Okay. I would propose them that we accept that.
Okay, I'll second that. All in favour?
Can I just make the point that we are just receiving noting these as draft minutes at this point, because obviously these minutes haven't actually been that committee members to approve. So if there are any amendments need to be made at that point, that needs to be happened by the committee. There are potentially some amendments need to be made to those services. The wording around the, I think one of the recommendations anyway. So one of the resolutions rather. So, just as part of this sort of discussion, I don't want to prolong things given that we're already quite late in this meeting, but at some point I think I would like to have a look again at our process now that we've got these new committees in place, in terms of making sure that we approve minutes in the correct order, so that the committee itself approves its own minutes and then those are noted by council. There's a little bit of that front, I think, at the moment. So we need a bit more work on sort of meeting
hygiene. So I will have to give that some thought and discuss with the officers and talk to members about that for future meetings. But for now, just for
Okay, so corporate and democratic services, we proposed and seconded it, didn't we? Okay, all in favour? Against? Abstain? Staffing committee, verbal report from me. Obviously, I can't go into details. It was a closed session because we discussed staff salaries and contracts and a pension. We made a few minor decisions that obviously we discussed in detail and we were happy with, but I'm not going to talk about the details of them publicly. Recommendations. To approve the recommendation relating to CB 3823 regarding the canteen.
Can I just say, I don't think that the document, the amended document, has actually been circulated, is it? I did ask. I did ask for it to be circulated.
In that case, we can't approve it. So
it feels a bit. Yes, it feels a bit loose. Oh no, sorry. But if not, then.
Did I get it from you because you asked me to check that it was accurate to what we decided or something?
No, I didn't take the notes from the night.
Right, okay. Oh, right, so I've got the document you originally produced.
Yeah,
exactly. All right, in that case, we will move swiftly onwards from that one. We can't do point 2 either because that's not quite what was resolved.
Yeah, so that's
the wording's not quite right on here.
On reflection, we was double check the minutes of that meeting that actually doesn't appear as such. So I think we'll leave that one out.
Okay, we'll do that. So we're on to 3, to approve recommendation PL 208/23 relating to earmark still money.
So yeah, so it's just being circulated.
This, I don't think I'm sort of.
It's in the minutes, in the planning.
Yeah.
This is the one to approve the use of the SIL monies for the renovations of Wall School.
Yeah, which is obviously also going to be under discussion during the budget.
So we got it.
Well,
it's in the minute book then, you can read it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a recommendation that's come forward from the planning committee to be approved by full council, so that process needs to take place in the date.
We got this one on item 10, probably. We almost need to do 8 before we do those 2. Actually, no, we probably don't. Yeah, we need to move 10 in front of 8 because if we discuss the budget and then add something to it 2 items later, we need to rediscuss the entire budget. It's getting a little bit confusing this.
And you could defer the recommendation.
Yeah. I think we'll defer the one we just talked about, the recommendation, and go after we got the draft budget. But I'm going to move 10 in front of the draft budget, but first we'll do 7. My God. Somebody remind me what I've just said when we get a little bit further down this list. To approve finance report, schedule of payments made between 27th of October 2023 and 7th of December 23. Yeah, okay. Has anybody got any queries regarding them? No, okay, in that case, I propose to approve them. Okay, all in favour? Against? Abstain? schedule of payments to be made on the 8th of December 23. Anybody got any queries? No? Okay. Yeah, so we're going to move to 9 next.
Do we want to vote on that?
Yeah. Yeah, so it'd be nice if somebody proposed maybe.
I'll propose that we accept those. The schedule of
I'll
payments.
second it. All in favour? The schedule of payments were made on the 8th of December.
All right.
Yeah, okay. Against? Abstain? Lorraine, you are allowed to vote for things, you know. Fair enough. Okay, so we're going to move. I've got something to do. Move 9 forwards. Well, it's not, yeah, 9 and 10 need to come before 8, in my opinion. Yeah.
Okay. 9, so point. So this is in relation to approving additional funds for the project. I won't reread the entire report to you. There is a breakdown there of project income, as it stands, and then project cost summary, so the original and the forecast, and then where we currently are at. So the proposal is to approve the use of £15,000 from the project reserves budget and set aside up to 20,000 as a new contingency from the same budget line.
So this is effectively the one you forewarned us about.
It is. So this, yeah. So this has been
Yeah.
reported for the last sort of 4 or 5 months. So it isn't in addition to what's been reported. This is just the output of what's been happening. So I mentioned to the committee that we have been working towards just bringing this to full council once rather than continuously coming every month and doing it in piecemeal. So this is like a one hit kind of thing to based on the project forecast to take us to the end of the construction period as well. Don't have you to take any questions from anybody.
We thought I'd ask one. Within the original budget, obviously there was the element of profit for the company that was undertaking the work. Now, without knowing what that profit element was, why don't we just, as a council, as an authority, be asked to basically underwrite that profit potential loss? You get my drift?
I do.
Yeah.
I obviously can't discuss OHPs, but the answer is no. We're not, having spent many months in negotiations with them. I can assure the council that that is not what this fund is to do. It is for actual items that have arisen.
Through the chair, as I look at the figures now, the overspend is potentially 34,000. Well, I presume that the company would probably want to make at least 10% profit. So that overspend is less than 10% of the profit, potentially, because I don't know what it is. But in those figures, they factored in their profit.
Like I say, I can't discuss in a
I'm not
public
comfortable with budget more. I haven't seen the contract, so I don't know what the.
But we are bound by contract, obviously, for certain elements. I can't discuss with you.
No.
You have my word, but that's as much as I can give you in a public meeting, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I'm not going too much.
I presume that the 15,000 has been part of the negotiations that you've had with the company over the delay and so on, and our part in it. I think I probably would be more comfortable at this point to say, well, that 15,000 is kind of contractually an obligation, but I don't really want to set aside another 20,000 without, I suppose, without an opportunity to have another discussion about it. So although it saves time to just bundle up money and to not ask you to kind of come back and explain it again, I think I think my personal feeling is I prefer to split these two accounts and say to you, 15,000, I can understand is still kind of a done deal, but the extra 20, I want to, if you need to dip into it any more money, I don't need to come back. That'd be my feeling.
I think I agree with that, and then I think so alongside that bit though is when we're obviously talking about budgeting later, like we still need a figure to put into the budget as well. And I think it's a fair sum to put into that budget. I mean, given where we are on the project, it seems like a lot, but yeah, we've got a number here. But that doesn't mean it's an authorised spend, if that makes sense. I think that's what I'd like to see. So it's like, I'd like to see that extra 20 go, like, budgeted in some way. It doesn't have to be 20, we could say a different number, but then we could say that's not a signing off the budget you can just pop into, but it still has to come back. If that makes sense.
Sean and Kevin, or if you can respond.
So the claim contingency, so that is a projection, so it isn't a hard and fast, it's going to definitely be this amount of money. This is based on our educated, informed decisions that have been made over the last few months and where we anticipate things going. And it is a worst case scenario. I always give you the worst case scenario. So it could very easily be 1,000. I'm happy to bring it back, but what I will say is that it will need to be prior to the next financial year. So it won't be something we're looking to budget for next year. So that's why this project isn't included in the budget projections.
Sean?
Yeah, thanks for that, Frankie. I just wanted to agree with Philippa's point. Feel more comfortable to kind of position those additional funds, and then yeah, what Philippa said basically. I don't need to talk it over. Thank you.
Kevin?
I think that our accounting for this project, I've made the point before, I think it's not been particularly brilliant because we haven't, as I understand it, really taken into account our own officers' time, and our own officers' time devoted to this project would dwarf that 20,000 quid. So if the good people of North Cornwall or the good people of Bude-Stratton rather think they're going to put their hand in their pocket for an extra 20k for this, it ain't 20k. It's been quite a lot more right throughout because we haven't properly ring-fenced what this has actually cost. Having said that, the actual 20k that we're being asked for, I'm relatively relaxed about. If we need to create a 20k contingency from the current financial year's budget to see this project over the line, it's a big project. It's a big chunk of officer time. It's within touching distance. If it needs a 20k contingency from the existing funds to get it over the line, and there's a sort of an open book accountancy procedure where our professional project manager is happy that we're not being ripped off, then I'm prepared as a member of the council to put my hands up to them.
Yeah, just addressing Councillor Birch's point. I presume if the 20k is being set aside as a contingency, that's not that is automatically going to be spent. But presumably, if it's set aside as a contingency, it would be discussed anyway.
It's going to be there if needed. We should have to come up and request it.
To the committee, because sorry, if you don't mind.
Yeah,
the reason for bringing it today is that it allows the committee the ability to then say, yes, you can spend X amount of your contingency, whereas at the moment the committee don't have that ability because there isn't anything there and only full council can approve that, which is why it's here today.
Okay. Yeah, I think, just to address your point, Kevin, that we don't know what it's costing in staff time. Obviously, we picked this project up from the previous council, but we've got permanent staff on permanent wages and we know what their wages are. And when they're working on projects that council has resolved to do, you know, their wages are their wages that are factored in. You know, it'd be incredibly hard to break down. Did you spend an hour on that, but you got a phone call about this one, or, you know, it's. Just, you know, I just want to clarify that the idea that maybe there's an additional cost to what's going on isn't there? Yeah.
I fundamentally disagree, Mike. I believe that most of us have worked in jobs where we've had to allocate time to different pots of money. You know, a lot of people work in a job where some of your time is paid from one pot of money and some of your time is paid from another pot of money. And there are things as old-fashioned as a timesheet to as modern as a computer thing where you just press a button now and again to get that done. And I'm not suggesting that every single fund can do that.
I'm sorry, this isn't about my salary. I'm really sorry. We should have discussed it.
Frankie, you know, that's kind of the point I was trying to make, is that we pay our staff the salary, and dragging up their time and hours in the middle of a public meeting is not the place to address it. It's for staffing committee, which obviously is private.
That wasn't my point, and for the record, I'm not having any problems with anybody's salary or their ability or otherwise to do the job or anything of that nature. What I am saying is, on a matter of openness, when we're talking about budgets and when we're talking about what things cost, people need to be aware that time spent by members of our staff is a cost to the community. And that's not, you know, that's not having a go at the individual staff, and that's not saying that the particular project should be done, but that's what the project has costed. The project has costed all the time that we give, all the money we spent to contractors, all the other money, but it has also cost the staff time.
Well, yeah, I agree. And that's what I'm making is that anything they do is factored into the draft budget. You know, it's when people are suggesting we support other parish councils with our staff, they're suggesting that we use our staff's wages and time to support other parishes. You know, this is a project within our council, and it's just a given. I think most people understand that staff working on it get paid. Yeah, but you know, the question before us now, and the point I was trying to bring us back to at 7:45, is we need to decide on whether we're going to give a member of staff the ability to make this payment on a contract.
Well, I'm happy to propose that we do that we make the contingency. I think that's absolutely legitimate.
Okay, I will second that proposal. All in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 against. 1 abstain. 3, 4. Okay, I'll just check I haven't missed any things. Yeah.
For the record, Mr. Chairman, it's purely because I haven't seen the actual contract, so I don't know what.
Yeah, like I said, this was done before our time.
Exactly.
You all right? Yes. No, we need to move 10 forward as well, because if we approve this, we have to be factored into the budget discussion. No point discussing the budget and then adding to it. So that is the school food support proposal. Now, who brought this forward? Right.
That's good. I can talk to it if you like. Would you like me to?
Yeah.
So the purpose of this proposal is requesting that the APC for 1 year school food support hire. So as we all know, there's a group of children who receive free school meals, and the salary at the moment for being paid for free school meals is quite low, somewhere in the region of 7,200. So there's a large group of the rest of the children who are in junior school who have to pay for their school meals, and quite a number of those children at the moment can't afford it. So this proposal is that we that we pay for 20 children in each of our junior schools, because all of our infant school children do pay for school fees. So we pay for 20 children in our junior schools who are in the kind of mid, where they're not eligible for free school meals, either by virtue of the fact that their parents earn slightly over the eligibility amount, or their parents are self-employed. But they're still, I suppose, effectively identified as families which are needing support, because there's a pupil premium paid for them into the schools. And the proposal is that we pay for those children to receive free school meals for a year. Because the school year doesn't align with our financial year, well, it would have aligned with our financial year if we'd done this in September. But because now we're talking about from January, then there's an element which we're asking for up from reserves. And there's a amount that's been identified potentially from the war rooms surplus, which is in reserves that hasn't been used. And I don't think there's a plan now to spend that war rooms reserve. And that will cover over, I think, for the rest of this school year. I don't know exactly the figures in terms of how much more that would cover, but I suppose as part of this proposal, if we could at least pay for the 2 terms of this school year from that figure, that's in the Roman school. I think that's kind of about it.
Okay.
Yeah, just to say, like, yesterday, I think it was 6th. Yeah, yesterday, there's actually a parish council, who was it, Southwark Parish Council, actually voted to do basically the same thing. And provide free hot, in fact, explicitly pointing out hot meals for children over the times and things. So it's not completely unheard of. And I can imagine it's going to end up being a growing thing now that they're dead with it. So,
yeah.
Yeah, I can see the motives for support, but it seems to me reading the document that a significant number of parents don't register for free school meals. Well, perhaps the school should emphasise that they're not doing the school any favours by not urging their parents, those children to do so. And if this council, I think, did you refer to Suffolk, was it?
there's a parish council, Suffolk Parish,
Oh.
so it's probably smaller.
Perhaps that council's not facing a budget deficit of nearly 55,000 for its current financial year, so it's got the ability to do so. And as we know, we're going to be discussing next year's budget soon, and not to make a recommendation, but the council has significantly has depleted its reserves, not just through the acquisition of Lord's Court, which I completely support, because as Councillor Paul said, it's a good asset and it's not just disappeared, it's a good asset. So to me, it's not something that the town council should really be getting involved with. And also, it's a grant. If it does succeed, it's a grant. It's not something that the council directly paying officers to administer. It is a grant, so it should come from a grants budget, not another budget or using reserves. I mean, it's just, I couldn't support it.
Can I just explain about the people who don't register for free school meals? At the moment, all the children who are in infant school are entitled to free school meals. So that's in reception year 1 and year 2. So the parents of those children who could potentially be eligible for free school meals don't need to register for free school meals because they're getting them anyway. But by not registering for free school meals, they don't attract the pupil premium into the schools, which leaves the schools even less able to fund the kind of activities they were funding. So Bude Junior School was providing bagels for the children, which they're not able to provide for now, except at a cost. And Stratton Primary School, they had a breakfast club, which they're now having to put the prices up. So there's children who can't afford that breakfast club anymore. And I think Bude Junior School had a free breakfast club, which they're also able to not provide now. So, given where we are in terms of North Cornwall and the children who are living in poverty, it feels like feels like a kind of an opportune thing to do, to at least allow some of these children. Now, we wouldn't have to identify them, the schools would identify, but that's nothing that we have to kind of get involved with. But schools know who these families are when the children are really struggling. They're not, school dinners are paid for now through apps, and when the money runs out, the children come to school and they don't get a dinner after a while. They get some dinners, and then the school says your debt has built up too much now, you can't have a dinner. So the schools know who the families are who are struggling. And I think that, you know, in talking to them, they felt that us paying for 20 of those children who are above that free school meal would make a real difference to those children in a pretty kind of hard time and pretty hard year.
Yeah, I mean, nobody can disagree with the sentiment and the emotion of this, but, you know, there's a problem, isn't there, about kind of marketing this as free school meals. And I know that terminology hasn't been used, but it isn't free. And we, given our budgetary situation, if we're putting up precepts, we're taking out of one pocket and we're putting into another.
The point I was going to make on, yes, it's, as you say, entirely supporting the principle, but the question we actually have to ask ourselves is, have we put ourselves in a position where we're able to do that? And we're going to discuss that in the next item, but that's why I moved this one forward.
And of course, we have to remember that as a council, we don't have revenue generating powers really, other than the precinct.
Which would increase council tax benefit for the poor people that we're trying to help. Yeah, it's not a nice one, this, I'm afraid. Jan.
Yeah, so I just want to say quite clearly that I support this fully, and there are no buts for me. There are no but the precept might be going up. That might have to happen. That's happening in a lot of parishes all over the county. We are in one of the most critical cost of living crises of the last 20 years. There are a lot of families struggling in our community, and this could have a huge positive impact on those families that kind of slip in between the funding gaps for free school meals and pupil premium. And I think, yeah, this is a really timely proposal, and if we kind of don't go for supporting this now, we'll be really disappointed in our kind of lack of ambition to support our community to thrive, because that is exactly what this looks like. Supporting our community to thrive is supporting those that are in the most need at the greatest time. And yes, we've got some lovely buildings and some fantastic projects and a lot of other incredible aspirations, but this for me seems like a very low sum of money for a huge amount of resident value within our community. So yeah, there's no buts for me. Yeah, so obviously if people really are on benefits and health and benefits, things like that, then obviously council tax, and that still goes for adults as well, but that doesn't mean that they're not being costed. The difference here is that we're asking potentially people who are able to contribute tax to give some of that tax money to kids who can't eat. And fundamentally, those kids are going to grow up, hopefully, stronger, more able to concentrate, and therefore more able to put into the economy, work, better jobs and things, because they're actually concentrating at school because they're able to eat. This is why free school meals were brought in the first place years ago.
I think we all understand the point, Kate.
And so, but let me continue, if you may. But I'd like to also say, if we don't put this onto the budget, then we're not discussing the budget as a whole. If this is an idea of the council and people are generally in support of it, we should therefore go on to the next step, which is where does it sit in that budget? And therefore cost of things accordingly. Because right now, there's things potentially like audio baffling for the park out centre, which could be dropped
and this could be paid for instead. Like, because we've not had that
We're
sort
going
of
to have
discussion.
that discussion next. I mean, I think,
Yeah, so that's why
you know,
I'm like.
like I say,
moving forward.
we understand the point that when you're throwing in things like people on housing benefit don't pay council tax, they don't pay for their school meals either. So that was a false comparison, really. It's people that are paying for school meals that are poor, are people like me. I am in that bracket, and I just don't qualify for any of it.
Yeah, which is why
But
your
I
food
do
would be
pay for my
covered.
kids to have food.
Yeah, and then their food will be covered by people who are not paying council.
Yeah, I pay council tax as well, yeah. So, we are talking about people like me, and I support the principle of this 100%. But like I said, we have put ourselves in a position where 19,000 suddenly becomes quite significant. And that's the issue. You know, it's where, what are we going to drop to take it? Like you say, baffling anything, that's what we've got to go through next. Isn't
Yeah,
it?
but if we don't vote this through now, then we won't have the opportunity at all for this. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I've jumped it up
Yeah.
the agenda. But yeah, it's like I was saying, we can go around the table making the emotional argument. I think every single person here wants children to eat. And
So go to the next stage, then we decide.
the question is it our position to do that? And can we afford to? Phyllis or Jackie, I think it's first.
Certainly, I will eloquent, but real quick. I think we should be doing this, and I think it's a very well formulated, it's very measured, it's 40 kids who are going to need it the most. And I think if we can possibly do it, then we should. There are no buts from me either. Just in terms of money allocation, the water room project surplus that hasn't been spent is 16,797. So the 19,000 on this is.
Yeah, I understand the maths.
So we're not talking about 19,000 on the group separate, yeah, potentially 2,000.
Or we could reduce the deficit, as pointed out by Councillor Morris very early on in the discussion. Kevin.
I get paid what's called the national living wage. I refer to it as the minimum wage because it's the statutory minimum that my employer is allowed to pay me. And my council tax is a wacky, great big lump of my salary every month. Would I be prepared to spend another 10 quid, 5 quid, whatever this amounts to, on a Band C property to get 40 kids who wouldn't otherwise have a school meal? Yes, I would. And I think we've got a lot of things in our budget, and I'm emotive about Lord's Court. I'm emotive about some of the other things we do, and some of the other things I'm thinking maybe they're not quite so important. But I would like to have the discussion in regards to this programme. I'd like to have a look at our reserves and our budget and to see if there is any way that we can fit this programme in. And even if it has to be funded completely from the precept, I think lots of people in this town would consider, as I consider, that a few extra quid on your council tax is worth it to put some food in the bellies of kids. And I know, we can't have delusions of grandeur. We can't take on the mantle of the county or indeed the government. We can't solve all problems. But this is something that potentially we can do. And I'd like it to at least move forward for discussion.
No proposals on the table, so there's no point just sitting around smiling at me. I can't do it.
I propose then that we, so actually proposing a project. I propose that we accept the proposal at the top of the sheet that's been handed to us. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So that's one. Bude-Stratton Council to fund a 1-year school food support programme to be reviewed after 1 year following evaluation total cost of 19,000, 13,300 to be funded from. Well, okay, we can discuss how it's going to be funded in the next one. And that Bude-Stratton Town Council also allocate £8,000 from reserves for January 24 to March 24 to cover the winter terms.
Okay, all in favour? Okay, against? 2 abstain.
Chair, can I just ask you a question about this topic?
Yes.
Who on the council is the lead in this matter? And the reason that I ask is one of the things that one of my sons does is he is the executive chef for a number of schools. And one of the things that he's done to support the sort of children that you're talking about is obtained food, if you like, through the budget that schools already get. So it hasn't cost anybody anything, but the families benefit. Now, I'm aware pretty well of how it works, and this is in Devon, so I don't know if there's a difference in Cornwall. But basically, what I would like to do is talk to him about it to see if the process that he engaged it in one school initially, and it took off, and it's now operating in 5 schools, probably more actually by now. But if he thinks that you might be able to apply it here, I'd like him to be able to contact somebody. So,
well, Ethan was the lead, but we.
Yeah, you can certainly contact Council Purchase. Yeah. So my email address is on the website. If you want to, yeah.
I'll have a word with him.
And we can slide that one in there somewhere. Okay.
To discuss the draft budget. And now we can decide how we're going to pay for the 52.
You can, so I'm going to let Tatiana introduce this. Obviously, I think we've all seen the email in that we can approve this in January. We don't have to get it done now, but go for it.
Yes, we do. So we have managed to obtain an extension until after our next full council meeting in January to submit our piece of request for council. I suggest that perhaps we may need a further meeting after this meeting before the next full council, so maybe in early January to do some more work on it. So the situation we've got at the moment is that the draft budget that we have before you has had a lot of input and the draft that are very much by the RFO, thank you, Emma, and also other officers. And a group of chairs of committees met a few days ago to do a little bit of work on this and put forward some suggestions. So that the intention of that group was to do a bit of the legwork really, because obviously important items to discuss. That wasn't a decision-making body. So there were just some suggestions, and you'll see those in the papers. The areas that we discussed, particularly we wanted to adjust, are the ones that are in marked red. The intention is very much for us to help you to keep the preset down, and of course that means that the council tax is then kept as low as possible for local residents. And I'd really like to stress that the town council is trying its best to reduce the burden on the taxpayers of Bude-Stratton. So if we can make a start, I don't think it's very helpful to talk about final figures at this stage, percentages and so on, and banding. Let's just kind of work our way through as efficiently as we can. And we've got systems here live, so she can make adjustments as we go along. The way we did it last time was to have it flipped onto the screen, but we can't do that on live stream at the same time. So that was can quote us, we say, change that bit and tell us what impact that has. Right, so top level, yeah, so you can see sort of first page, you can see summary of income and expenditure, but that's going to change as we go on. So I think we should just get some nitty-gritty of the actual committees. So first is corporate services. As I explained to the group the other day, there's Laura Richard complained about the income, although he said that we'll come back with caveats to that, because there's other things we can do. But for the most part, that's already that's been calculated, and so it's not something that around the table we can easily change. So I'm not suggesting to go through that line by line, of course, unless anybody has any questions. But then the expenditure part of it is one where we had a few queries. At the time, we didn't have everybody in the room who needed to be to answer some questions. And actually, I'd like to hand over to Frankie to be able to maybe explain some of these items that, because I know that these have come about through the project work that you're doing, and then I'm sure the members will ask questions. That'd be all right.
Yeah, that's fine. So to start with communication. So we have, these are all obviously, as I like to say, worst case scenarios in a lot of cases, where we are pulling figures together. So we've upped the communication budget for a couple of reasons. Firstly, we felt that we haven't done an awful lot of communication and around consultation lately, and I'm aware that the council, there's quite a few items that you probably do want to consult with the general public on in the coming months, particularly where you're looking at your future visions and things and goals for your final 18-month term. So we've increased that, but it is movable. It's not like a set in stone. It was just in anticipation of trying to do this form of consultation. General project expenditure has been included. Again, so similar to the communication, this just allows officers to actually undertake their jobs. So separate to the projects themselves, we obviously do have things that we have to purchase, and sometimes that's not always been possible because we haven't got a general fund there to allow us to do that. So as we have for communication, we have a general fund, this is a general fund for our projects. Again, I think some discussions have been made and that has been halved, as you can see in red, the second line. Which is fine. We need to have something in there. So if members feel that that's a more palatable number, then that's fine. Economic development. So there's a bit more complex this. So we are aware of a £12,500 grant that is coming our way, and we're looking to match that to give us a pot of money of £25,000 for economic development projects, whatever they may be. To enable us to do that, it would mean budgeting for £4,500 and taking the rest from what is in the economic development reserves budget already there, which would give us 12,500 and then the total amount of 25,000. So when we come to look at economic development projects, we would have a starting point of £25,000 to work with. So that's how we've come to that figure. The youth facility project has a grant application which is currently live for £175,000. So the building where we're looking to house the youth facility, after having quite a lot of extensive work done already, we've established that the roof internally is in a lot worse condition than we first thought. So there is a potential that we may need to do more to the building than we first assumed. which is why we put in a figure of 25,000. But if we wish to reduce that, we can, but it will just obviously have implications when we come to cost the project for the building. If that goes over our budget, then obviously we wouldn't have.
Can I interrupt just for a second? Sorry to interrupt. The figures that the kind of the chairs group proposed are the figures that are under the heading draft budget. The figures that were originally proposed by Frankie and the officers are on the one that says council tax budget. So when Frankie's saying we sort of halved the project expenditure one, that's represented by that figure 5,000 in that draft budget line rather than the 10,000 which is in the council tax. I assume that's how that's actually worked. So the figure we're looking at is either 5,000 or 10,000, and the figure for economic development is either 0 or 4,792.
Yeah, so this is in line with the complaint about this.
Yeah.
So it's linked to the draft budget.
So it's the draft budget figures that
fine. So that, so what was that? Yeah, there isn't an element of confusion. Potentially, some people find the clear one. I just wanted to check that in which case the amount of money to be put into the budget for the youth facility would be.
I didn't think we touched that at all.
No, hang on. So according to the original budget.
Okay, so this isn't what was put to the committee last week. So what was put to the committee was that the youth facility has a grant of £175,000.
Yeah.
Okay, that isn't coming from us, it's coming from the grant. I'm asking the council to budget an additional £25,000, which would give us a total of 200,000 for that project.
So should that not be 25,000?
Yeah, it should.
So that should be 25,000. What we got 175 in the income. So that's come through it. Oh, okay. Okay. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. That's what. So is it? Did you follow that?
So yeah, I mean, I absolutely follow it. I understand it because I was. Yeah. I think if people weren't at that meeting, I think that the two comments may really confusing.
Okay, so the budget that says council tax budget, that's the one that we're looking at. So communication, I'll just go through it line by line. £5,000 is being suggested as the budget for the following year. I originally suggested 10,000, that's been suggested to half it to 5. So again, that would be 5,000 in there. For economic development, it's 4,592. For the youth facility project, I'm suggesting 25,000 is budgeted. So obviously, if we don't budget that 25,000 and we are successful with our grant, but actually our project is more because of the condition of the building, then we're in a position where we don't have enough money to complete the project. So it's, do we want to budget for something and know that we've got some funds there if the worst does happen with the roof and we need extensive works done, or we don't, and then the budget's 175.
Yes. It would be 200. Yeah, but at my last meeting, yeah, exactly. So what? Right. So what? Sorry, I know it's a little bit confusing because different columns. So what? So the council tax budget line, right there, is 25,000, which frankly wants to be added to the 175,000 to make so that. So stressing that needs to be 200,000. Yeah. Which is the project total. But at our little mini meeting, that was brought down to 175. So frankly, you stressing that needs to be 200.
My recommendation
is brought down to 175. Philippa suggested that we could discuss reducing that 25,000.
Well, that's what I mean. That's what.
So we never actually did discuss it, and if we had, I would have said that it was a hard no.
Well, but that's what's on the paper at the moment, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So that's what we need to be clear
We,
about.
we can't be feeding 40 kids and then taking a youth facility that could last thousands of kids spread over 10, 15, 20 years away. It's just the kind of false economy that doesn't work, for me at least.
All right, so if I can just say, so Frank is suggesting that should be 200,000. So if we, that's fine, if you just, is there anything, yeah, so more, so if we
Yeah.
finish, and then we can discuss.
Okay, so Compass Point, as previously mentioned, we're not looking to budget for that project going forward. We're hoping to financially tie everything up in this financial year. Food and activities programme is 30,000, which is not dissimilar to what has been spent previously, although if that has to change, I understand there's a feasibility study being done, so that may need to be altered. Skate park project, we're looking towards achieving £450,000 in grant funding. However, one of the items that was for discussion was that we are aware one of the funding pots we're looking to apply to, we've been advised may not be successful for some reasons, which I'm not going to go into now. So that means that the project total would come down to 400,000. So again, we would be in a similar situation that if our tenders come back, we may not have enough funds. So that's obviously for consideration. We've spoken about school food support. And interpretation for the parish. So this was a combination of looking at the entrance sign into Bude, but also various areas in the parish that don't have interpretation that we've identified probably do need it, but it is something that we could potentially put on hold and suggest that we just do one, or it doesn't need to be, that's a movable thing quite easily. It hasn't obviously been, not all of the sites have been resolved, and to do that too. Stratton Battle Memorial has been resolved, and based on quotes we've received, we are anticipating £7,000 being needed for that project.
Who wants to kick it off?
I just want to ask, what fund was it that was unsuccessful?
It's not unsuccessful, but we're aware that somebody else is bidding for a similar fund, effectively.
So
parish.
Can I ask what the fund it is?
I'll be honest with you, I'm writing 5 bids at the moment. I can't tell you off the top of my head.
That's okay. That's good. Well, definitely not having the Heel Valley Trail to work with.
Katie.
Yeah, I just got a question about the communication one. I mean, obviously, yeah, I totally agree, we need more consultations and things. Is that 5K, like, what's it exactly for? Is it for like putting things into the press? Is it for, I mean, we already paid the Survey Monkey, like, is it basically for some proper consultation software, or like, obviously our staff costs is cut over
So the communication budget pays for our advertising predominantly that we do, which whether that's press or online, or we need to do advertising for various things, and that's what that is for. And obviously, if we do consultation, then there's a bigger expense in terms of advertising that consultation, and that's why it's been increased.
So I wouldn't suggest it like being used for anything else other than advertising. Basically, just say it's like communication and advertising. I guess
that's what it's for. Yes.
All right, cool.
Philippa and Kevin.
I want to come back on the situation with the youth facilities project. I'm certainly not suggesting that we scrap the project. What I'm saying is that we agreed at full council that we would spend £15,000 investigating the youth facilities project, which is our money that we put in. That investigation has started. and we agreed to a grant application of £175,000. But I don't think that we've really dug into the details of what that project actually is. I don't know what the project objectives and aims are. I don't know who the project team is. I don't know who the project lead is and those kind of things. Now, I feel that before we effectively commit another £25,000 to a project that we don't know anything about, we should look at what the £175,000 entails. If there is wriggle needed, then we have got project reserve in our reserves, which is for projects. That's what we put it in there for, is to take stuff out of it because it's projects. It's a capital project. So my feeling is that it's too early at the moment to put another £25,000 onto the preset on the chance
I think
that either the project will be so big that we'll need the money, or that we won't get enough grant.
I think to come back on it, in the back of my mind is the skate park project, which we started trying last year, and we didn't do enough work on it, and we didn't put enough in ourselves, and we didn't get any funding. And we risk the same if we do this with the youth project. So for me, it's a case of learn from your previous mistakes and don't make them again. But yeah.
But I was going to make a similar point about the general projects reserve. £25,000 is a significant chunk of cash, but there is also a general projects reserve. So if we got to the point where the grant was in, we got the money, we were busy building, and then for want of 25 grand, we couldn't complete the project, there is actually a projects reserve. So in the tight financial constraints that we're in now, I would suggest maybe that projects reserve isn't that.
I'd say on that topic specifically, when that 25k will be coming out as well, are we really expecting that building to be effectively getting to the point where we're spending our last pennies in the next financial year? Because I suspect it's probably going to end up, it's going to come after the skate park. I don't know if we're going to do the two adjacent exactly the same time. So it's going to be a lot of overhead for our staff to be able to manage all that. So I suspect it's still, you're going to start it, like here's skate park and then here's your youth project, and that's going to come into the next financial year. So I don't think it's worth necessarily budgeting for this financial year. And the other thing I was going to mention as well was you had some questions actually around the economic development, because I'm assuming, so that's the 12.5k and then the 12.5k for that match, right? And is the economic development something that we're foreseeing being literally town team projects, or do we see it being staffing town team, or is it something else entirely, like if the town team asks us for some money and then we give it to them? I don't know how that relationship, there's obviously a number there that's come out the air, like it's grant for something, so I'm just wondering. Yeah.
Which bit do you want me to start with?
Well, yeah.
Okay, so economic development. So the grant is £12,500, which is from Cornwall Council towards town team. So knowing how these things tend to work, we had a discussion and felt that it would be advisable for us to match fund that to give us a start. But you don't have to. I'm just suggesting it would be a good thing to do. In terms of the youth facility, we don't want to add the 25 in, don't add it. But then, I don't really know what more to say.
If it fails, I won't hold back on mine, but okay.
Can I just add about the youth facilities project? My understanding was that part of £175,000 is staff salaries for youth workers.
Yeah, it's to provide an activity program for a year, advice for them to help with things like learning to control their wages, getting jobs and everything like that. So
I think that the argument in case made that all of this spend is not necessarily going to come out next year's budget. It's true, isn't it? because we're going to have to get the building up, and then we're going to be paying the staff over a period of 2 years.
I thought that the idea was to get the building in shape, wasn't it? But if we,
Well,
the conversation we had was with this, going back to the skate park again, we got turned down from the funding bid. We had not advanced the project far enough ourselves by the time the funding bids went in.
There is £175,000, does that include staff costs for when the project's up and running? Yes, yeah. So that is not likely to all need to be paid.
Okay, well,
So this fund has to be spent by the 31st of March 2025.
Yeah.
So if we need extra funding after that, that falls into the financial wisdom.
But that will be after the project. As this fund has to be spent within that time frame. My recommendation for adding the 25,000 in is because we've been advised that there's additional work that we may have to do to the roof, which is obviously going to cost us lots of money. So we can either take it out of the grant funding, which will then reduce the revenue budget which we have, which may jeopardise our entire funding application anyway if our revenue isn't high enough, or we could increase our budget towards the project to focus on our funds on the building and then hopefully be more successful with our funding bid because it would be higher in revenue.
I feel like the details of this project really need to come to a committee and we need to absolutely understand what's going on.
Can I ask, if you do that, you're going to miss the deadline for submitting the application for funding?
I'm happy, and we have agreed that the deadline, that the funding we can go in, but I think that we can trying to get under the covers of this project and actually understand what the proposal is.
Yeah, we don't have another, that's the only information used to be before we have to send it.
It's also worth pointing out for me, the entire project includes the build and the activity programme, which is the revenue aspect of it. And all of that has to be completed by March 2025. So the 25,000 that we're suggesting is added to this wouldn't be spent on this project beyond 2025.
But presumably, if we wanted to actually increase the longevity of the project, then we could increase some funding into 2025, 26 by adding money to the budget there.
If you chose to.
But now we're talking 25k to death, and in the scheme of things, that isn't a great deal. But from my point of view, it's almost like we're building a second contingency. We've got a project contingency, and we've got a special contingency for this particular project. Maybe we just fly with the general project contingency, and we lose the 25,000 earmarked contingency for this. And then if it has to be that we can't do everything next year because we haven't built in enough contingency, then we have to fight about what thing we're going to do.
Yeah, obviously there is support for that around the table. I personally believe having that fight over a youth facility that we've been asked for by a vast majority of the youth in this town through an independent survey by the NEAT side and now through the town team. If we're going to take a risk on a project, I wouldn't choose this one, but it would appear it does have the broad support at the table. So, yeah.
I mean, we do need to kind of make some.
Exactly, yeah. So if that's the one people want to bin it, but it is.
That's not.
All right, I've used terminology to say, but like I said, if you want to take a risk on a project, I wouldn't choose this.
I also don't feel like saying taking a risk on a project and it being the facility one is the one we want to bin is what we feel. We just feel we don't have enough information about this project broadly and would like to discuss it again. I don't feel like personally that 25k needs to go on this particular.
It has gone.
And I think Kevin's suggestion about
the reason you didn't get an update on it at the last committee meeting is because there wasn't time and the member of staff had to leave. Otherwise, you would have had that report and we would be making an informed decision right now. Okay. the opportunity was there, and I did point out in that meeting that we needed to receive some important reports. I pointed out at about 7 o'clock, at 5 to 9 those reports had still not been given the time. Tom?
Yeah, I lost my train of thought now, but, if we are saying we don't need to put in this 25,000 this year, because there's time next year.
Yeah.
We're just delaying, just kicking the can down the road, then, aren't we? If it doesn't get spent this year, next year, it will be held over, won't it? I mean, I don't see the problem about allocating that 25,000 this year.
We need to make some suggestions.
Yeah,
These
it's-
we
I
move
mean,
to another committee.
Yeah, right, Peter, and then,
Yeah, I was going to, well, I don't know whether you want to go through line by line or what.
well, we've got about 30 minutes left.
Because, as has been suggested already, that the general project expenditure could be reduced somewhat.
Yeah.
That could defray or offset some of the youth facility project. For example, the current year's budget anticipation is to spend the 15,000 the full amount as was allocated in this year's budget. So I would suggest that we tailor that down to 15 for next year, so it's the same as this year's. So you've got 10 short on the request.
Yeah.
5 of that could come from general project expenditure instead, and another 5 from the existing transferred out of reserves, project reserves. So actually get the amount that you require by saving 5
Yeah.
at the end of the day. You see what I mean? But whilst I'm talking as well, the actual spend on the food activities program, which I know was very well received.
Yeah.
2 years ago, and it said it isn't much more. It was nearly double what it was 2 years ago. It's been so successful, I presume. But again, is it really? It's not a council activity. The members of staff, if there are members of staff involved, that are not direct employees of the council. So really, that ought to be in a grants budget, not in council expenditure. It's a grant. Again, as I've said before.
Yeah.
Like the one for the schools food, it's a grant. It's not a council expenditure. It's not our staff that are spending it. So to me, I would allocate those into grants, because it gives a better picture for the members of the public to see what, it's not a direct service that can be provided by the council.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah, I understand your point, yeah.
I mean, that wouldn't, but that would mean increasing the grants budget, sort of like exceeds the current budget.
It would.
already, so, yeah.
But at least it's transparent, not hidden in the, not saying it is hidden, but it,
Yeah.
but it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Gary.
If you want to make a saving, like I would, considering the town team hasn't actually requested any money from us, I've just removed that. And there's going to be, there's so many projects in that each one has to have its own sort of discussion. So I think it's almost like it's too premature. Like they don't even know what they're going to spend that they have got from Cornwall Council one. So I think it's just premature, and that's what was it, 12,500 we say. So that's a fair amount off. And then on top of that as well, the interpretation for the parish, you say that was signage? Because we've obviously been agreeing all this time to put off on up and off the sign, redoing the signs, handwriting signs and stuff. Is that the welcome to Bude sign, basically? Because we basically voted to just repaint it, like.
Frankly, it depends on everything, that it was several signs
Okay.
around the parish.
Okay. So I think
Identified and I think it was, I think probably last year that it was agreed that would take place and hasn't yet.
because I think the signage one explicitly, again, like I think part of that comes down potentially to that branding type exercise, which is to imagine town team is going to want to do. And so even though we can say we probably want to put that 7K there, and I don't know how, if the town team is going to get to it again, like
It was it's now that we own no interpretation rather than, you know, take it out, then we don't do it. It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got to try something, but yeah, just choosing what.
The-
But Kevin.
There was a
a discussion of the welcome to Bude sign at the last F&E. And it was considered that because the town team had identified the signage interpretation as something that they wanted to proceed with, we were going to effectively leave it to them, other than just tart up the sign. Well, my memory might be fading badly.
Yeah, what was resolved was that the sign will be taken down and be assessed for its reusability and address.
Yeah,
that's all.
Okay, well, but it was, but the matter of actually doing the sign ourselves and making a new sign and possibly running a competition for people to put in new ideas, all of that just went away because the town team had that remit.
So if you remove the signage and the economic development, that would be 19,000. Is it? Sorry, someone's sort of
I'm just
on one of them anyway. There's a whole
this is one page of.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Three, four, and and potentially conversation about the reserves as well. So I would like us to make some progress, whatever that is, and bear in mind we've got at least two opportunities.
Yeah.
Like, how do you need to know what we're going? There needs to be at least consensus.
Okay.
And if that has to take form of a vote, that it can, but Emma needs to know what to put in the spreadsheet, otherwise
Yeah,
we
well-
can't come out with what we do that.
Like I said, it looks like there's broad support around the table for removing the youth one. I'm really not happy with it personally, but
Can we start from the top? There's a bunch here, isn't there? Should we just run through them quickly? So there's the communication, leave it at 5, reduce it a little bit.
I would like to see that reduced because I have a feeling, I know the price has gone up with local, like, newspapers to advertise them, like a lot. But I feel like we also did a lot of work with the housing survey. And there's a lot of people learn from that and methods that we did with that. So maybe when we do a consultation, maybe it's a bit more, actually it's there's presence at the fence again. I think they're much more effective. So I wouldn't want to reduce it down by much. I mean,
how much do we need to
half it.
come right?
Okay, I'm going to say half it. Then, sorry.
Does anybody have any strong disagreement with doing that? No.
Half it. So 2,500. So it's not like it's double. It's double, but it's half of the
It's got to be.
Right.
Right, drop that to 2.5.
What's next on the general project? Expenditure, where are we going with that?
Well, the proposal is 10,000. Proposal that I made was every half that, so 5,000.
Yeah.
Any big issues? No, okay, do it.
What are we doing with economic development?
I suggested that we removed it, and if they come to us and actually ask, then we can do something about it then. That's
From which budget would we do something about it then?
sorry.
From which budget would we do something about it then?
No, as in there's other methods that we could be doing, like because it's going to be on a per project basis, and it needs to be self-sustaining. Then it's things like, okay, well, how do you self-sustain a town team? And I think from that discussion, we will figure out, okay, well, this is how town team's funded. Is it funded effectively? Is it like a bid? Is it actually, we need to say, no, they need paid positions and those need to be done by the town council. Like, but 12,500 is not going to pay for a single person to be on it full time. So, like, if that's why I say they need to come to us and say, no, we want 3 people full time on it or something. I don't know. Or we want this project funded. Like, it needs to be a lot more specific. I get the idea of giving them like something, but they've got something, but now need to use that something to develop.
I don't want to rush you on too much. Can you condense this down into a suggestion that involves a figure?
Yeah, no, I said to.
Just bid the lot, or
Well, we've obviously got the potential grant, which was 12.5K. But the suggestion was to have 12.5K to match it. I would remove the 12.5K to match
you want
it.
to bid the lot?
Is that the one? It's not.
Well, I
it's not-
contribution to 12.5K.
I can't see it. Well,
The
that's
other-
easy.
the other
Fine.
amount is in our current economic development reserves budget.
I feel like sticking that is.
If it exists, leave it there, but not in the next budget. That makes sense. If it's in the reserves, leave it there. But
It is.
otherwise-
It exists.
Yeah, not the new
Brings-
stuff.
brings
basically.
balance to
Does that help? Or should we, or is this the point to talk
This
about
isn't
that?
a dictatorship.
I'm trying to figure.
What we do here will be owned by all of us, so.
No, I'm just trying to work out the process.
We just need to make some decisions, and where there are real serious concerns about, decisions that have been taken, then these can be revisited, I suggest.
Okay, well, remove the lot and then we can revisit it.
So,
Is anybody,
I agree with that.
I think the trouble is the officers have made this suggestion, and there's reasons why it's not done.
yes, when I'm at work, we've got a finance department. If the finance people tell me we can do something, I go with it. If they tell me we can't, I tend not to argue with them, but.
It's a joint effort.
It's a
joint effort,
yeah,
very much.
yeah,
Very much.
I lean, yeah, I think the point I'm making is I lean more towards expert advice, but we're in this situation, it's been created and we've got to deal with it.
Just generally, I just feel like trying to discuss this at the very end of a full council meeting is really not
No.
productive.
No.
Before we've had a, sorry,
When do we discuss?
I'm just about to carry on. if you don't mind. Yes. Before we have had a specific meeting that has been a full council, but it's not been the regular one
Yeah.
a month where we've just discussed the budget. And we're fresh and, I just think this is.
I would, yeah, I would.
8:45.
I would just having a whispered conversation with the clerk along those lines. but,
This stage.
Yeah, it's, we've got an extension that we became aware of yesterday. Otherwise, it had to be done tonight, which is why it's here.
But it had to, so now we have January.
We have now got an extension, so we could have meetings and then schedule it in January, but that's Tom makes the point.
Well, we've also got, what, 17 minutes left?
Yeah,
I just can't see how it works.
no,
So should we finish the page?
Yeah.
And then move on with other things.
Can I just point out, it is on the agenda.
yes, I know, that's why I'm dealing with it. Yeah, even though it was 8 o'clock and I knew it was going to be another. We've still got another quite important one to do after this. County vision and investment plan. So, yeah. But like I said, it's not a dictatorship. I will, we all get a vote, we all get to speak.
Well, did you want to go carry on through line by line? or did
Yeah,
you
we
want
need to carry on with this for a minute.
Okay. So, which one do we get to?
You said project.
So I've got two. Development.
Well, I would say that the 25,000 contingency for works that we may not need to do on the roof, that ring fence contingency is removed, and that if those works need to be done, they're taken from the general project contingency.
Agreed.
Lorraine, you haven't spoken tonight. You're waving your hand. Yes.
I kind of disagree with that because Frankie's already said, sorry Frankie, that the work is going to need to be done because it's in a state.
Yeah.
So I kind of disagree with taking it off, but then should it? Yeah, I disagree with taking it off because there is.
We've been in, we own the building and we know the roof needs more work. So it's not an if, it's a, it doesn't
That's
need.
kind of my point, is I don't think it's a good idea to take it off if it's been looked at and it needs work doing.
I think some of the other savings that I've done elsewhere hopefully would add up quite a lot, but I'd probably still take off a small sum from it, just to ensure that we are still coming in generally under. So if we did remove the bits,
Well, the proposal isn't that we take the £25,000 away.
Yeah.
To make it disappear. The proposal is that we don't have it in our revenue budget, so it doesn't have to increase that. But if we need the £25,000, we have got £119,000 in our budget reserve, of which we could allocate £25,000 of that to the project.
It's an accountancy, from my point of view, it's an accountancy exercise. It's not to disrespect anybody's professional opinion on a roof or to disrespect the project in general. It's an accountancy exercise. I think the general contingency project is there, and we don't need a separate ring fence contingency for this roof. But that's an opinion.
If I may, Mr. Chair, the other side of that, of course, is if you are brought to spend that money, you want to completely reserve sterling, which is the point of putting it in there.
Yeah.
Those aren't.
Yeah. I'd suggest it's 15. Same as what's expected to be spent.
Yeah, I would be happy with that.
Yeah,
that's 10.
Everybody broadly happy with that, or 15?
Yeah.
The next one was the food activities.
No, it's not. It's fine.
Yeah, well, that's.
Yeah, that's not.
Yeah, there's nothing there.
It's fine.
That's for the next one. Well,
Should be finished by then.
yes.
Yeah.
Again, until it's a grant, really, I wouldn't want to see it disappear, but I think it's just going to carry on escalating. And the council itself is not a charity, and I would suggest that it's compared to 15,000, the same as it was before. Everyone's got to spend less. But that's, you know, and if it means that less is done, less is done.
Yeah. See, on that one, I view this one slightly differently to the actual food schools program, because this is literally when school isn't on, so those kids who work this carefully, parents maybe don't care as much as some of us, or aren't as able as others, don't look out, you know, that's when they really do fall through the gaps, and there isn't a teacher or a worker to sort of spot that somebody's carrying up emaciated or somebody's very lethargic and stuff like that. So, you know, particularly for the 6 week summer holidays.
And then there's of course activities as well. So.
Yeah, but although that, you know, that being said, if you've got an activity program on the youth centre that's up and running, you know, we, you know, in a few years' time, we might be providing this service in a different way. You know, it's, but yeah, that's when I really do worry about those kids that fall through the gaps. Is 6 weeks when there isn't a responsible adult. Not meaning that disrespectfully to the people around them, but you know, like a professional adult, should we say, teacher, to spot problems. But yeah, we have just committed another 19K, so yeah, we've now voted 49 effectively to do.
And I suppose you anticipate that I would want to keep it at 30,000. I would say as well, there is an economic benefit to the town. This is childcare effectively for those who are able to get out of work and they can afford that over and over again. But being able to afford this childcare through Christmas and Easter summer is allowed. And that's why effectively the money's gone up. As you say, the first summer we did it, it was more limited, and now it's become more popular.
I think the small difference here as well, the fact that we're going to end up going to tender for it as well.
Yeah.
Like we've agreed to go to tender this year, so it could change quite substantially, like either way, if like a much cheaper provider or a combination of people come in. And on top of that, like we also don't know what other opportunities might happen with the I can't remember the exact program it works with. Time to time to move as well. So, like, I think.
Yeah, we need to agree. We're 11 minutes from 9 now, so.
I'm keen to retain that as it stands.
Yeah, I personally would leave either. So take the plan in.
we have metrics to say that that is an extremely well-run program.
Yeah.
I did.
Did you?
I did, but I'm not gonna. I don't think there's any point having the conversation.
Oh, 50K extra, you said.
Yeah, we just kind of fucking got it, you know, we've committed 20K previously to something that is very noble, but we're struggling to fund projects that we literally are doing.
Yeah.
And therein lies our problem. But
There's something in reserves for yeah, so it's supposed to be.
It would be good to take those out and put those to the food program.
So that's going to be.
Yeah. And in some ways, actually keeping those two programs different, like a separate line is really useful. Because a bit. If you can, keeping those two like there's a difference between the one that's during summer holidays and the one that is actually just part of the school. I know they do fundamentally the same thing, but I think conceptually there is actually a difference. So you'd have to do it right every second, but it would be nice to have those separate if possible.
right, anyway, where are we?
Yeah.
Sorry?
Interpretation of parish, I said to remove it because it's going to end up being a town team project. You can see it now. All the signage around town.
That wasn't for,
Oh no.
no, that was for land we own, but it doesn't.
Yes.
It's taken
Yeah,
out. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I think if we could, if there's some amount of it, we can keep it on burden to do something if we need it. There's something like that, unless we think that's all going to be.
I mean, I can't remember what Jack's signs were quoting when we had
Already
that
done.
initial thing.
So it's already been done.
It's coming out of this year's.
Yeah. Okay.
Stratton's right.
Right.
And then the, okay, so that's that.
That's that page done. I mean, fine to suggest that we actually set up a meeting to do this specifically because it's late. I don't know about anybody else who's got a mic. Yeah.
And then we come back to yours. It's got to be done in the next 2 minutes.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, sure. It has to be done.
It's a county meeting Thursday. I remember my brain's starting now. Right, so we will work out the date of the meeting to solve this because we need to move on to. Right, I've moved everything around, hold on. 11, we'll do a county vision and investment plan. Hopefully everybody has read the document.
Quickly speak to it, Mike. Very quick. I'm very quick. So this effectively is the fruits of the £48,000 that from the council granted town team and held by the town council to undertake significant and far-reaching consultation with the community and to formulate projects that it felt best suited funding opportunities that are available, but also best reflected the findings of the consultation. So there is a range of projects in there. In this particular document, there's a selection of other supporting documents, but effectively you're being asked to endorse the vision for Bude and Stratton as a document.
No, sorry, I think all three of us attended the meeting, didn't we? Yeah, you can't take speak now.
Everyone agrees. Everyone agrees. You're welcome.
I think the only thing that was, there was some interesting wording in terms of reference, that if we endorsed something, it triggered something, or it was like, this is why I said to you to write it in a certain way, because it's the terms of reference suggested we endorse it and then something happened with the town team, basically.
No, there's no recommendation in the document for a future model of the town team
Yeah, there's a, for those who don't know, there's going to be a working group set up that's already in motion to work out what that future governance structure will be. We've got a document that Philippa wrote and then was crushed through
Very painfully.
C&D. Christ, God.
Yes.
I was up at 5 for work, sorry, through C&D last week, so yeah, I don't think we're in any danger there, because that piece of governance is governance is yet to be decided.
No, yeah, effectively, the terms of reference say outputs from the town team need to be put in front of the council for its endorsement. What's happening?
Second.
Thank you, Jackie. Yeah, so we do need to nominate somebody to the working group, so.
Well, take it on the endorsement. Sorry.
Thank you for reminding me.
Sorry.
So this is voting to endorse the document, all in favour? That's unanimous.
No.
Is not unanimous?
I think so. Okay, other one.
Kevin.
I was just indicating.
Yeah, okay, we do need to assign somebody to the working group now, I think, don't we?
Yeah. So, I think it'd be quite nice actually, if the meetings are during the day, then it'd be fun, and if in the evening, it'd be myself. And the reason is because I've obviously got experience in setting up the CIC now and things, so I've got that in hand. Because even that's what I want to do.
We could nominate somebody and a substitute, and then
Yeah.
That doesn't go if the council wishes to do it.
Like, are you going to be involved in it anyway, do you think?
No, it's a working group and BSDC give one councillor, so it's.
Well, I'm happy for you to be the daytime rep if you want
Right.
to be. And for Katie to be the evening rep.
Actually give, would you be happy for us to sort of have a rotating rep depending on?
I would say so.
Yeah, we could, Robert,
As long as
so it's one of the three of us that is already signed the council.
Feedback goes back, because we've had this problem where somebody's come to the meeting and then turned up at the council meeting and pretending they don't know anything about what's going on, so.
All right, so sometimes you might get me, sometimes you might get Philippa or. Let's not go down that road now. We're very close with a rolling rep. I propose the rolling rep, please. All in favour? It's unanimous. Right. I'm going to ask this because it's on the agenda, but I want people to think very long and hard about what they do with it. To receive any updates from lead councillors on community activities and outside bodies.
Right, I can do a very quick one from the Armed Forces. Met with Graham, good meeting. Armed Forces have given me a whole load of info to do with D-Day for the 80th D-Day next year, which I can give forward on to Mark.
Yeah.
We'd like to be kept informed of what's happening. Had an email from some legislative people regarding foster care, etc., that I think I need to pass on to Ollie Monk.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else? No, moving on. Katie.
The flooding in the Strand happens because of the high tides. I report it straight away, and actually it turns out that if there are any changes of roads and paths, they really want to know. That's the sort of thing that actually would be really ideal for them. So sort things out and stuff.
Okay, thanks.
There is one more thing, which is the way forward with the automatic cruise controls and GPS sending people down the wrong way and all sorts of stuff. Talked to Cornwall Council, and they're basically we've come to a decision together where we actually do petition the MP to do something.
Okay, we're 15 seconds out. Anything from you?
No correspondence as such, just to remind people that everyone is invited on Friday the 22nd. Between 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock.
Right, that's probably got 2 minutes.
12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, drop in for Christmas nibbles, and also members of the public introduced here. Very welcome to come on.
Anybody else? No. Okay, to note the date of the next meeting is Thursday, the 11th of January, but obviously as previously discussed, we will set up a meeting to go through the rest of the finances. And that will be the sole topic of the meeting. You're free to go.